Testing. We're going to be starting shortly. I got to take this real quick, and I apologize for 2 minutes.
Having her print it out. Sorry about that. I don't know. I put it in my folder and then I didn't send it. No. Sorry.
Okay, we all ready to go? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole working session for the City Council elected body. Thank you, everybody who are appearing today. Hopefully, we'll give you some answers, some information regarding any issue they have here today at our meeting. Call is to order. Today's date is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. The time is 9:04 a.m. And before we move to the agenda items that will be operated by our city administrator, we do have some appearances today, so please have some patience as we move forward. We have a full agenda, and so I'm going to ask Councilor Paulson to meet out an email that was sent to our presenter this morning regarding the wastewater treatment plant. So I'll turn this over to Councilor Paulson, then we'll move back to the regular agenda. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So I just wanted to address that after the meeting last Tuesday evening, I had reached out to Paul Christensen from People Services on Wednesday morning and had a very brief conversation with Paul, who is here today. And I just wanted to share, Paul had asked me to put into an email any questions that I had and then to document the two rain events. So the email is, Paul, as per our conversation yesterday, the two rain events took place on Monday, June 16th into Tuesday, June 17th, and Friday, June 20th into Saturday, June 21st. Question 1, what time did you manually open the bypass? Number 2, who makes the call when deciding when to bypass, and what is the process of communication between People Service staff and city staff when bypass decision is made? Number 3, are you using existing pipes for storage causing potential backups? Number 4, what is the normal flow? What was the flow during peak times of each of these storms? 5, do we have interceptor tanks? 6, do we need to have pressure capacity tanks to allow for higher capacity of flow? 7, what, if any, is the fine from the EPA MPCA for bypassing? We are in the process of collecting data from residents who have been affected with stormwater, sewage, or stormwater with sewage, so we can map out these locations to allow us to create a plan for alleviation. It would be my best assumption that at least 200 homes were affected with some type of flooding. Could you potentially create a plan or pathway that our engineer of record, Matt Reed from SEH, and Jim Rosfett, our Public Works Director, could analyze and determine best steps forward the city should take? Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. So I believe that Paul will be presenting hopefully some answers to the questions that I had sent, and that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Britt, we'll turn the agenda items over to you. Item number 1, appearances. And then there is a correspondence that did not get into our emails sent out to your regular packet from a residence down on the agenda here upon completion of Mr. Christensen's presentation. I will read that email. Britt?
The first item on the agenda is Paul Christensen from People Service regarding an update on the wastewater treatment plant.
Mr. Christensen, thanks for coming. And please, Mr. Paul Christensen from People Services. Paul? Yes. There you go.
Now is it on? There we
Yes,
go.
sir. Yes,
Paul Christensen, People Service. So, yeah, I'm here to answer any questions the council may have in regards to the wastewater operations and potentially its impacts on these recent flooding events that you had on the 17th and the 21st. I guess, yes, Pam, or pardon me, Councilwoman Julian did reach out to me, and I did come up with some answers for her, so I think I'll start with that. What time did you manually open the bypass? So we were contacted and we opened the bypass at 3:20 a.m. on Saturday, June 21st. We did not bypass the plant on the 17th. We weren't asked to bypass on the 17th. Who makes the call? The call for bypass, that decision is made by Public Works. So we receive our instructions from them, and when they call and ask us to open the bypass, it is our position to do that. Maybe just to touch a little bit more on that. So when they call for a bypass, it's our job, then there's a valve out there at the wastewater plant that controls everything that's coming into the plant. So the trouble with the plant is that it can only push so much into the facility. So we can push, the plant can handle 3,000 gallons per minute. The pumps can handle more than that, the influent pumps. So those influent pumps, then anything over 3,000 gallons per minute will go into our flow EQ tanks at the wastewater facility. But there is still the limiting factor of your 4 influent pumps. So we can only pull water out of the collection system so fast. And that's somewhere around that 10,000 gallons per minute range, I believe. And so then we're pushing that extra water into the EQ basins. But again, we are limited by the capacity of those 4 influent pumps. So because of the limited capacity of those 4 influent pumps, there is a bypass that we can open up and then completely bypass the influent pumps, the entire wastewater facility. And that is the bypass that we do open up when we're directed by Public Works. So that bypass then, it's something where around a 40-inch pipe or bigger. So it takes about 100 turns on a valve. So a man has to go out there. We have to unlock the bypass because the MPCA requires that it's chained and locked at all times. So we got to take the padlock off it, take the chain off, and then we start walking around in circles about 100 times to get that valve open. It takes about 15 minutes to open the bypass. So just to kind of give you a little bit more information, if anyone from the council would ever like to come out and have a look, we'd be more than happy to show you the facility and the bypass and the procedure and how it works. So when Public Works calls us to bypass, then it's our responsibility as the operators. We have to call the Minnesota duty officer. So there's a record of all bypass events. We call the Minnesota duty officer. They issue us a bypass ticket number so that it's documented, that bypass did occur. So it's all on record. It's also our responsibility as the operators that we have to pull bypass samples. And whether those samples are there at the wastewater facility bypass, or the Public Works also at times bypasses out in the collection system. And they will call us and they will notify us that we had to bypass at XYZ lift station. And then we will go to that XYZ lift station and pull samples also. And we will also call the duty officer for those bypasses. So it's kind of a sharing of the load there. As your collection system, people are out there trying to manage the collection system as best they can. We come in and we pull the samples for them. We contact the duty officer. But we, again, are, follow their directive. It's their decision on when the bypasses are done. Are you using existing pipes for storage causing potential backups? No. We are, again, when we are told to bypass, we bypass. So what is the normal flow? So normal flows are about 1 million gallons per day or less. So we're running about 800,000 gallons per day to 900,000 gallons per day typically. All daily flows, you know, flow is something we record every single day out there at the wastewater plant. What happened on the 17th was our flows jumped up to 10 million gallons. So we had a increase by a factor of 10 on the 17th. And on the 21st, our flows were 8 million gallons a day. Now, this does not include the bypass flows or the surcharge flow meter. When the flows, it's amazing to be out there to see what happens with your flows when these rain events occur. There's about a 2-hour delay between the big rain event and when the flows start to increase at the plant. So we can see it right there. There's a lot of good information on your SCADA that you can see the trending, and we can share that with Jim, and we can share that with Matt or the city or whomever. But it shows you, you know what time the rain stopped, and then 2 hours later, it hits us like a wall of water. And so in between 15 to 20 minutes, those flows they went from 900 gallons per minute to somewhere in excess of 12,000 gallons per minute. So it just came down like a hammer out there. And yeah, it's extremely dramatic. I mean, the numbers are right there. The computer's recording all of it, the lift station levels, the flows coming in. And then that influent flow meter, it records up to about 12,000 gallons per minute, and then it tops out. And the water goes over the top of the influent flow meter, so it's no longer even being measured. It's still being processed by the facility, but we don't know how much water actually came through in these storm events because our flow meter gets completely submerged and it's no longer reading accurately. So after 12,000 gallons per minute, we just don't know. And then we don't know how much is bypassed because that is not metered at all. So when we call in these tickets and these bypasses, we can't tell them how much volume we bypassed. We don't know. There's no way to measure it. So it is extremely large amounts of water that are being pushed out of the facility, which, from us as operators is, we're trying to do the best job we can, utilize your plant to treat that water as best we can. And it certainly pains us to see all this raw wastewater being bypassed, but it is what has to be done. Property, human health has to come first before environmental compliance. And the MPCA knows that. I mean, they know that the city has to do their absolute best to keep it out of the basement, and that's got to be the first priority. And that is the way things are being done, being operated here. Do we have interceptor tanks? I'm not quite sure what the question is. We do have the retention tanks there at the wastewater facility. We have 3 million gallons of on-site storage. So those retention tanks, again, anything over 3,000 gallons per minute the plant can't handle. So that extra water just automatically flows over a weir into those 3 million gallons of retention. And then we can store that, and then we pump it back in later when the flows recede. But again, there's a bottleneck. We can, like on the 17th, that worked, it worked better on the 17th than it did on the 21st, where we could push that water in there and treat it again later. But, well, anyway, so we've got the retention tanks there. But there are no retention tanks, to my knowledge, out in the collection system. And again, the collection system is not our responsibility. It's out of my wheelhouse, so I can't answer questions on the collection. Those will have to be directed to Jim and his crew. Do we need high pressure capacity tanks to allow for higher capacity flow? I'm not sure what this question is referring to, but the idea of having retention tanks also out in your collection system, that is an approach like Duluth has done. We have some operations in Duluth as well that we work with. And Duluth is a very robust I&I elimination and just a management program that might be someone that we could reach out to and, learn from some of their experience as well. It's, a lot of times it's best to reach out, talk to your neighbors, talk to other communities that have successfully dealt with these issues, and to see what information we could gather from them. And Duluth might be a very good city to run some questions by. But they have a strategy where they do have some storm retention out in their collection, is my understanding. I know we have a retention tank that we work on Duluth North Shore Sanitary Sewer District that also stores water. So that might be something to look into. What, if any, is the fine from the EPA MPCA for bypassing? So to date, there has not been a fine for this, because Jim and the city and Matt have worked with the MPCA to demonstrate we are trying as a city, as a community, to address our issues. If you were not addressing your issues, the fine would be whatever it takes to motivate you. But you are motivated, you are taking action. Therefore, we are on the right side of the regulators. And, we have a good working relationship with them. If we were to just say, it's not our problem, then they're gonna start twisting your tails a little bit. But, they're already twisting our tails when we've got the MPDS permit renewals coming up in the next couple of months here. A large portion of that permit is talking about I&I, and we'll have to address, what are we planning, what have we done in the last 5 years, what are we doing in the next 5 years, what are our plans, how are we gonna try and move this direction in the right direction. So again, what would the fine be? Well, again, they just keep increasing the fine until the cities do what they need done. So that has not been an issue because you have demonstrated you want to do what needs to be taken care of here. Could we potentially create a plan or a pathway with your engineer of record and Jim Rostvit? Well, of course, we'd be happy to work with Jim and Matt as part of a team to address these issues. We have data out there at the wastewater plant that might be very useful. We've got some information, some experience that we've had with some of our other clients that we would be happy to share. But again, it's part of a team. We don't, in no way, shape, or form, provide direction to them, but we would be part of, I think you always get a much better result when you look at team-solving issues. You don't want to look at just my expertise or just Matt's expertise or just Jim's, but when you start bringing groups of people together, now you've got the expertise of that entire group. And that, I think, is a much more productive means to try and get the right information out there in front of the council so that you folks can make your decisions on how to proceed, how to move forward, what are your next steps. One thing I would suggest is, again, as I stated, the city has been taking strides recently, trying to repair your pipes, trying to you've been working on your lift stations, making sure they're all working as best they can. So you've been doing a lot already. There is much, much more work to be done, of course, and you know that as well as I do. You know that your systems, your collection and your systems have a lot of issues that need to be continually to be worked on. But at some point, even if everything the city owns, all your infrastructure is brand new, you have got to work with you have to partner with your residents, with your business owners. You as a city can only fix what you as a city own. But there is a component, it's what's in everyone's houses that they also have to share responsibilities with this. So it isn't only the city that has to respond to this. There are issues in homes that are also going to have to be dealt with. And so I did provide some sump pump information that I think a sump pump education program would go a long ways, because many people don't understand how their sump pumps impact the system. And this isn't just limited to Virginia by any means. This is everywhere. That's why we've created this document as People Service, is to try and educate our customers and our customers' customers about the impacts that sump pumps, floor drains, roof leaders, all these things have, these clean water impacts on the sanitary sewer operation are, that 2-hour delay I talk about. I mean, a lot of that is that's the water soaking in next to the house. Some pump pumps it up. If that sump pump isn't discharged, onto the curb, onto the street, onto the surface, if that sump pump is hooked to the sanitary sewer, well, then it just pushes it right into the sewer. It helps create these issues. Now, this is death by a million cuts, this problem you have. It isn't just any one thing. You can't just point your finger to any one thing and you're gonna fix your problem. You've got your bad pipes, you've got your cross connections, you've got your roof leaders. When you do your smoke testing and you find roofs that are draining into your sanitary sewer, those will have to be addressed. There will be many, many decisions and actions that will have to be taken by the city, by homeowners, by business owners, by commercial property owners to eliminate and resolve these issues. There will not be any one fix. There's not any one person or entity to blame here. Everyone's going to have to work together to resolve this and to move this forward. And so, as a start, I've brought in this sump pump education that, Pam, I believe you've made it available to council, and there are some, brochures up here. So I won't tie up your whole entire meeting. Is there any questions I can answer or provide some information?
Yes, I have one question, and then we'll go around to the council too in that regard. My only question is to you is, I know we have to take a team approach. I know there are issues, we have to do everything we can. So if you were going to give, and I understand the sump pump ordinance, I understand the water discharge ordinance, what we have to be, and I know all the people who are sitting in this room, for the most part, many of them have sump pumps, many of them have the sewer, and maybe have all those things already in place, but still experienced a loss in water in their basement. And we do have a comprehensive plan we have to put together. So my question to you is, aside from the water discharge issues with the ordinance with respect to what the citizens have to do to discharge their water outside of putting it back in the stormwater, that's something we deal with based upon our discharge ordinance that we have. What is the one thing, I mean, it's a lot of things, but what can we do immediately to help mitigate the experiences that our citizens have with respect to the sewer backup and their water backup into their homes? Is there one major thing that we can do immediately to help mitigate and at least reduce the losses associated with this? Or is it a comprehensive approach the way to go, and that's going to take a little bit of time? So please, if you could answer that question in some way, we'd appreciate that.
Your immediate action, I mean, we are bypassing at the wastewater plant, but again, that only has impacts at the wastewater plant. You've got sewage backing up all over town. So you might have to look at doing more bypasses remotely out farther in the system. Because there are, we can be bypassing at the sewer plant, but if there's another lift station that's causing a problem somewhere else, much of the wastewater gets pumped multiple times before it gets to the plant. Mm-hmm. So you've got to look at each individual bottleneck, and I believe they're doing that, working with a lot of that data now, but I know you did some upgrades, I believe, with some of your controls, so there's some more data out there. Maybe you can find that there's more opportunity to bypass further out in the system. And again, that might be something that your public works people can look at, but there may or there may not be. Again, that's not my area of expertise. Mm-hmm. Now, if I was a homeowner and my basement had flooded, the very first thing I would be doing is, where is my sump pump going? Because if my sump pump is pushing in, if you don't know where your sump pump is discharging to, where that water is going, I mean, that immediately you need, as a homeowner, need to understand how your plumbing works. You do have to have some responsibility of your own plumbing. If that sump pump is pushing into the sanitary sewer, you say, well, I've already got the sump pump in, I'm good. Well, if your sump pump is pushing into the sanitary sewer, Well, then what you pump off your floor through your sump pump goes into your sanitary sewer and it comes right back up your floor drain. You're just pumping the water in a circle and it's just gonna get deeper and deeper. So, and many people now don't understand, don't put a thought into how their plumbing actually works. If your sump pump has got to be discharged outside onto the surface of the ground, there should be a hose running across the yard, pushing it into the curb, so that it runs down the street and into the storm sewer. Make sure that your sump pump is going to actually pump it out of your basement onto the street, not just in a circle in your own house. And that is happening, and I don't see any of those little black hoses running out to the curbs as I drive around town. There's probably a few, but I just haven't seen them. So I think that would go a long ways, especially if it was my house, then I would know that my sump pump would actually be pumping water out of my basement to stay. That would be the very first thing I would do as a homeowner, is verify that that sump pump is discharging onto the surface outside of the house. I would verify that, water isn't running through my basement walls, making sure that I've seen a number of, the downspouts where they direct the water away from the house. I noticed that on the way over. Some of the houses are set up with those and some are not. Where if that water is soaking right next to your basement walls, going down against your floor, right along your walls, it's gonna come into the walls. It's gonna either run into the floor drain, into your sump, or into a foundation drain. Again, now, you're pumping it. If you're not pumping it, then back onto the street, you're just pumping it in a circle, and you're flooding yourself out. So there is a lot that I, as a homeowner here, would do for myself, that we can't just, again, it has to be a partnership. The city absolutely has to do what they have to do to repair this infrastructure that's degraded over. Our great-grandfathers put much of this infrastructure in. And, we're relying on infrastructure that our great-grandparents put in. This generation is gonna have to reinvest. And the city's demonstrated the willingness to do that. But again, it's gotta be a partnership. It's not just the city, it's gotta be the homeowners, the business owners as well.
Thank you. And I do know that many of the people in this room have taken all those precautionary measures and still experience that issue, but those who have not, puts a lot of pressure on the system, as you indicated. And even though they have taken most of those precautions, because of the back pressure, they still experience that issue. So yes, a homeowner has a responsibility, the business has a responsibility, but we as a city, as you outlined in your report, we have an infrastructure responsibility and a problem that we have to fix as soon as we possibly can. So my last question to you before we move on is that, so these collection, looking at another collection location by our Public Works Department, then we would have to build some tanks to push some of that and collect it before it gets to the water sewer treatment plant, or beyond that? Which one?
Correct. You could install retention tanks in the collection system. Some overflow tanks. That would eliminate the need to bypass. It would be directed into those retention tanks, but that's going to take investment,
Of course.
site. You have to have a place to put them, of course. There are many options that perhaps, if we looked at forming more of a team, that we could start identifying different options that would be available for the community. Additional bypass pumps out there in the system might be another option, but, for more of a short-term relief approach, additional bypass pumps might be a good option. We'll do more sampling. If they do more bypassing, we'll do more sampling, we'll do more reporting. One other thing homeowners could do too is they can put in check valves in their sanitary sewer lines that will also potentially protect their property. But, it's always, where's the weakest link? Where's the next basement? You're just moving the issue on down the line. But
Okay, thank you, Paul.
thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate that. We'll go left to right. First, Counselor Paulson, then over to Counselor Motley, and then over to Counselor Bachschnider. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, and thank you, Paul, for that. I appreciate your giving us some vital information. I want to just follow up on the actual bypass situation. So just to clarify, there was no bypass that happened Monday evening, Storm, on the, I think that was the 17th.
On the 17th, we did not open the bypass.
Okay. And I believe a significant amount of people received sewage backup that evening. I feel like, was that Bauman Funeral Home on Monday night into Tuesday? So I have concerns about how our bypass communication and what tool. So I'm reading the people service contract, and it says, and I'm not picking on you, I'm just reading the contract language. The furnishings of a qualified plant operating staff, exclusive of the personnel to be provided by the city as outlined in section 2.1, to operate the plant and provide such regular and routine maintenance as may reasonably be expected by maintenance program outlined in paragraph 1 of this section, such staff thus to be furnished by People Service to meet the existing governmental requirements of operator certification. People Service shall provide regular operation of the wastewater treatment plant 7 days per week with emergency on-call services on a 24-hour per day basis utilizing People Service cell phones in conjunction with the city, wastewater treatment program alarm monitoring system, including automatic alarm dialer. And I feel like in some of the conversations that I've had so far is that it's an app. Is that correct, Paul? There's an app on city staff phones as well as People Service staff phones that an alarm will go off on the phone. Is that correct or no?
I don't know what you've got on your city staff phones at the wastewater plant. So there's a monitoring system at the wastewater plant to monitor what's happening at the wastewater plant, not your collection system. So that dialer, for example, on Saturday, June 21st, that dialer contacted our operational staff at 1:51 a.m.
Is that based on a flow, the actual flow?
It's based on a level in the wet well.
Okay.
So there was
The
a
wet
high
well.
wet well level alarm, so the levels were increasing at 1:51 a.m.
Okay, continue, I'm so sorry.
And that alarm then called our operators on their cell phones. We don't staff the facility 24 hours a day. We have people paid to be on call 24 hours a day. We respond 24 hours a day, but we're not there 24 hours per day. So that operator was reached at his home. He got the high level alarm. He immediately dispatched himself, came into work. At least one for sure, and possibly I think a second one also started shortly thereafter.
And then, so I'm trying to understand if there is a breakdown of our communication together. So it's, what you had just stated earlier is that it's the city's responsibility to let People Service know that we are going on bypass. Is that correct?
Correct, and there was no breakdown in communication.
Okay, so
You know,
how
they just
did-
talked via cell phone.
Okay,
And so the communication was there, they were checking in, how's the plant running? Plant was pushing the water through as fast as it can, but at some point, they've just, the Public Works says, you've got to bypass. It just gets to a point, they're out there monitoring your collection system, and then they make that decision, a bypass has to be done. Regardless how the plant is running, it doesn't matter, we might still have room in the retention tank, we could still push water into there, but again, there's also the bottleneck of your influent pumps, and if your influent pumps aren't keeping up, and that's what's causing a surcharge in your collection system, then we're gonna have to bypass the plant.
okay, so I guess what I'm just trying to determine is at what point, what level is it determined that we're going to go on bypass? Like for our city staff, is there a criteria for that?
That's their decision to make. So
And how is that decision?
I'm not involved with
Okay,
that.
so that would have to probably be directed to Jim as to what criteria that would be. Like, is it levels? So you're saying you guys are just plant monitoring, you're not necessarily monitoring anything to do with collection system.
Correct.
And then the collection system monitoring is done by our city staff? Is that
That's correct.
And there must be some mechanism, and Jim can address that, I'm sure, to notify our staff of either flow or collection or however, I don't know how that data is collected.
Right. They'd have to answer that question. I don't know how that
Okay, and then,
together.
once that alarm goes off from you said the high level of the wet well, once that alarm goes off, Paul, how long does it take your on-call people to arrive to our facility and then do the 100 rotation turn to open the bypass valve?
So those are two things, and they're not necessarily related. So all our employees are required to live within a 30-minute response time. Now, that high-level alarm in the wet well does not mean we're going to do a bypass, because that's what the level is in the wet well. It's the, again, that is based, a bypass that is under the direction of the Public Works Department. So,
And I guess that's what I'm getting to. I mean, you're stating that there was no breakdown in communication, and maybe that was a bad choice of words, breakdown, but how could we have better communication so that our city staff, does that wet well level have anything to do with them making a bypass decision?
I don't believe currently they're utilizing the wet well level information.
So is that something we should be doing?
I
Or
think
is
that is
that-
something that we certainly can make available to them, and they can then decide if it's beneficial to them or not.
Okay,
They are monitoring out in the collection system, so the wet well is separate, from the
Sure.
collection system.
and I'm just new to understanding this, so forgive me if I'm
Yeah.
not asking accurate
But
questions.
that's information, we can certainly make it available. It's all there.
And then I know that other communities, a very close community here, they're on an automatic bypass, so it's not a manual bypass. Do you know anything, or would you have any recommendations on manual versus automatic? And should we be looking at an automation system for our bypass mechanism?
I don't believe your permit will allow automatic bypassing. I don't believe
So
anyone's
Hibbing-
permit.
Hibbing has an automatic system. So, and Hibbing does a fairly good job. They have different ponds for, when they do a bypass, it goes into these different ponds on.
So that's,
acreage.
okay, but that's retention, that's not bypassing. If they're putting it into ponds and they're gonna bring it back later and treat it, that's retention, that's not bypassing. So you already have automatic retention with your 3 million gallon tanks. What you don't have is it in front of your influent pumps at the wastewater plant. So that's not bypassing, that is, we're gonna put it here and we're gonna treat it later.
Okay, so what I was told from the Hibbing, the way the Hibbing plant works, is that they do have an automatic bypass. So my question would be, if we're having these problems, and it seems to be the timing of opening up of the bypass valve, should we be considering what it would take to go on an automatic bypass?
You should be considering any and all options, I agree 100%.
And would
With
that
that
be one of
statement.
them?
That could certainly be one, but I believe the term bypass is the word I'm hung up on. That's not a bypass, you're redirecting the flow, you're capturing it in those overflow ponds, let's say, retention basins, and then you're gonna process it later. So bypass is just, we're letting it out into the environment and Mother Nature's got the problem now. That's a bypass. And that's not what that is. That's a retention, and that is certainly something you could consider. And it could be just based on an elevation of the water in your collection system at that point, it's just gonna overflow in automatically, overflow into these retention ponds. that is certainly an option you could consider out there. I mean, absolutely, and I'd be happy to work with Jim and your engineering department to consider these different options.
Okay, and the last question that I have is regarding the lift stations. And what I feel like you just stated was that we could be a little bit more proactive by potentially cutting it off at the pass, by eliminating the flow at some of the sanitary flow at the lift stations. Is that what you
I was
indicated, maybe? Or no?
I was referring to sanitary lift stations,
Yes.
but could you expand, please?
I'm not sure, I'm trying to kind of paraphrase what you stated earlier, was that we could do a little bit more proactive on the collection side, on the collection system side, and I'm not sure what that looks like because I'm not an expert in this area. And,
Well, what I did state was you have been proactive, you've been making some upgrades to your sanitary lift stations, trying to make sure they're all working as best they can. I know about that work.
but when we're getting sewer backup, even on the Monday night, and we're getting severe sewer backup, can we tell, like, maybe if those people put in their addresses, can we tell which lift stations got overloaded and why that sewer backed up into those properties? There is a property right across from, kind of by the ITMEC, I think that's 13th Street, that got completely full of sewage and flooding.
You're asking your collection system to do the impossible.
The impossible meaning to
You're
prevent sewer backup?
you're pulling the little short school bus up in front of the school doors, and then you're telling everybody to get on it. That's what's happening with your collection system right now, is you're just completely overloading it.
How are we doing that?
Again, I believe it's the death by a million cuts. It's all the leaky pipes, it's the old steam system that's, the steam drains, it's every sump pump that's hooked up, it's every roof leader that's hooked up. Every Wednesday, the 1 o'clock, the ground shakes, and all your clay pipes jiggle in the ground, and they crack, and the water seeps in. I mean, again, it's not any one thing, it's everything. And so you are just asking way too much of your collection system in its current condition.
So should we be being prepared and ready? Should we have pumps ready at those lift stations, vac trucks to suck it out into a vac truck in order to alleviate sewer backup? What could we be doing better?
You could
You're
look at
saying
some
those lift
additional
stations-
relief, you could
Yeah.
look at some additional relief pumping. That would also require additional investment by the community to provide more pumps to do more bypasses. Yes, that could be a stopgap measure as you move forward and correcting many of the issues that your system does have. So that is an option you could consider.
Okay, I really appreciate you being very open to answering all these questions, and I would recommend that any suggestions or recommendations that you might have, that you work together with your team, the city staff, Matt Reed, to put a pathway forward for us as a city to consider how we fix this problem.
Right, and I cannot imagine, I mean, you've got a very capable team in place already, in my opinion. And I don't believe I'm identifying anything that they're not already considering. But again, as a council, then you're going to have to make those tough choices down the road and make those budgetary decisions on where are we going to have to spend. And again, you have to partner with the property owners. You can't just fix the city infrastructure. It also has to be there as well.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Paul. Councilor Motley?
Yeah, she covered quite a bit and more than I even had on my mind. I'm thinking, what's the quickest way, and I know this is, what's the quickest way to put, if we have 6 inches of rain tomorrow, what's the quickest thing the city can do today? Is that more bypass valves today, tomorrow? What can we do to see some type of quick action amongst all the other millions of problems we have? Would it be a recommendation to this council to immediately look into bypass valves or bypass pumps?
I would, yeah, as far as a physical reaction that you could take, yeah, more pumps moves more water. I mean, that's simple math.
So, Britt, would that possibly be a recommendation from the council for me to make a motion on that? Or is that, I mean, or is this a topic from our discussion, or after hearing Paul say this, what would be your thoughts as the city administrator?
I would suggest, in the very, very short term, the council really needs to be open that there's going to be overtime, because staff's not free and time's not free. So for us to, and what we did with the sewer crew by adding 2 more people onto the sewer crew does help also. So now we have up to 4 dedicated staff that'll be involved in the sewer department. It's one step that's wonderful. The next one is if there's overtime, if they're out, the last storm, I think it was the Monday night one, we had staff out 24 hours, literally working here 24 hours. I mean, so we did what we could with the staff we had. Be okay with that. I mean, you're going to have to understand that does cost money to the taxpayers. That does increase interest or sewer rates, but we have to pay for those people to do that. We are working on the smoke testing. We did approve that MPCA grant to do the smoke testing. That'll be done on 2 different areas of town and along 4th Street North. That's going to tell us which houses have problems directly into the sanitary sewer line. We're going to have a conversation with those homeowners that there's something going on, and we have to be willing to have those conversations with homeowners and to explain what's happening, what we're seing, why this is where it is. And if we find that it is part of our main, like he mentioned, if one of our mains are leaking into the sanitary main, we have to fix it. To be open to that. I mean, those are things we have to be open to suggestions and solutions. And it's not a one solution thing. It's going to be many, many solutions.
Right. So thank you for that. Would it be your recommendation for me to hold off on making a motion to increase?
Yes, and I think Jim's got some ideas of some things, some purchases. There's a capital equipment purchase that we've been discussing for a long time now, that this might be the right time to do it now, is to get that rover camera. I think Jim's mentioned it before, the rover camera he wants to purchase. It's a very large purchase, but you know what? Might be a good time right now to do that.
Thank you, Britt. Another question. So on the 17th, I hear our normal water flow, you said was 800,000 gallons a day. And on the 17th, you stated we had over 10 million gallons and the bypass valve was never opened. If I understood that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. We did not open the bypass valve on the 17th.
Okay.
And the flow was 9.9 million gallons.
And I know this isn't your call, it's Public Works, but Jim, do you know why we didn't open it?
I'm pretty sure we did. We opened 2 times. I'd have to look back.
Okay. Okay.
I believe it was,
Okay.
we've got it all documented.
Okay.
And we hadn't, the ground wasn't saturated on the 17th either. So it has a very different impact on how the flows come into the facility, if the ground is saturated or not. So I believe we had more rain. We had,
A couple days later then, or when?
yeah, on the 6th, well, on the 17th, there was a 4-inch rainfall. And on the 9th, over the 20th there was 2.5 inches. So, whether the ground's saturated or whether it's not, if the ground has any capacity to hold it, or if it slows the migration of the water because it isn't already saturated, it changes how it impacts your collection system. It changes how it impacts the wastewater treatment facility as far as loads coming into that.
Sure, that makes sense. And then just random thought when we were through the topic of discussion, and and this is, I'm not putting blame on anybody. This is me thinking as people are talking, the response time for the contract with People Service is 30 minutes. It takes 15 minutes to turn the thing 100
Turn the
times,
valve.
the valve to open it.
Yep.
So from the time Public Works calls People Services, it's close 45 minutes to an hour before that valve's open, which is
No,
or
we were,
I'm not trying to.
when the wet well level alarm went off, our operator reported to work. We were there at the facility when we got the call from Public Works. So there wasn't the 30-minute lag to drive in. We were already at the facility, staffing it, manning it. We have, when we get into those high flow conditions like that, we have to monitor the facility operation. So we're typically on site before Public Works calls.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the information. Thank you, Mayor.
Before we go to Counselor Boxleiter, real quick, we don't need to have any more discussion about what needs to be done. We already know what needs to be done. We just have to do some action steps to to put together a plan and go after the funding as quickly as we can to help mitigate this thing. We don't have to have any more discussion about it. We already know. You know, Jim knows, we all know now what the problem is. We just have to find a way to fix it. We have identified some issues we have with the collection system, all those other things that we have to do. Let's get the recommendations from the professionals and go after the funding and get it done as quickly as we can. You don't have to have any more discussion with respect to that, only how we're going to proceed and how we're going to get the funding. So thank you for that, Paul. Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Paul. This was really helpful to see what the process is like once the rain starts. I'm curious, what do we do during the day at the lift stations if we know it's going to rain? Are we getting them prepared and emptied ahead of time for that? And maybe that's a better question for Jim. And if it is, Jim, do you mind coming up to the microphone to answer?
Paul handles the treatment, so
Paul?
treat whatever they can, so.
Okay, Jim or Roz, for those of you who didn't hear, indicated that People Services addresses those issues. And Paul, could you address the question that Counselor Bachschnider has asked?
I cannot. So I do not operate the collection system, so I cannot answer what they do with the lift stations. That is strictly Jim's department. Is that acceptable?
And that's fine. And if that's the case, Jim, do you mind coming up to the microphone and just saying, so if we know it's going to rain either later that day, that evening, what are we doing at the lift stations to get the lift stations prepared?
Thank you. Jim Rosvit, our Public Works Director. Jim?
Morning. There is nothing you can do to prepare. We prepare every day, all day. First thing in the morning, the sewer guys go out, they do their inspections, they make their rounds at all the lift stations. Monthly, they check generators. We continuously have contractors on site. In fact, we've had them on site again, going through our wear items on our pumps, maintenance on our pumps, things like that have been neglected. We're looking at 50 years of neglect, minimal. And it's expensive to repair it, replace it. I'm looking at about 11 pumps that are gonna need replacement. They're all working, they're functioning the way they should be, but they hold water in the oil, their electrical components, they're old. The casings on them are rotten. You can't even split the casings on them anymore because they've never been opened in service. They've sat for 50 years. Well, now they're replacements, but they are running.
So, and again, the lift stations, they cycle multiple times a day, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're looking to find reserve capacity in your lift stations, they do cycle multiple times throughout the day. So you can't really find any capacity there. I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that throughout the day, if we know there's going to be rain, or if that's just a standard practice, that we are getting that prepared.
Yes, and there's some stuff I'd like to touch on yet that Paul didn't cover, but even with Paul and People Service, when there's a storm event coming, it's all hands on deck. We're aware, they're there usually before we are. There is continuous conversations going throughout where our reserves are sitting at, how high we are to what we have left for storage. You know, that conversation's always going on between my foreman, my team leaders, my sewer crew, and People Service. So there's always communication there. But I did find some things that I would like to address if we do get a chance, so.
Thank you. And then to confirm, Jim, you have the authority to say, open the bypass. Like that is authority that you have.
I do, my team leaders, my sewer, actually any of my employees out there are aware enough, they've been trained enough to know when we can go into bypass. we're not gaining anything by not going into bypass. You know, if we can, we'd rather go earlier to maybe resolve some of these issues. But I did find some stuff, like I say, and I'd like to discuss it a bit, but it's something I will bring up, so.
Thank you.
And remember, too, I talked about those flows at the wastewater plant. You know, they went from that 900 gallons per minute to 12,000 gallons per minute in about a 15-minute window, and it's all right there on the SCADA trends. So unless you start you talk about, could we get additional pumps? Yes, you could, but I mean, that water is coming so fast, you might have to start the pumps before you need them. Because it's extremely dramatic what's happening out there. It is not a simple, if you're talking pump setup, portable pumps, and having to set them up, I don't know. If it's cloudy, you might have to put pumps out.
Okay, good. Okay. We know what the issues are. We've identified the issues. It's a team approach moving forward. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Paul, thanks for coming today. Several years ago, you and I walked your plant extensively, and I appreciated that. And I would invite any of the other councilors to take that walk with you. It is amazing how, as Jim has said, 50-plus years of neglect has hamstringed us on so many issues in this city. This is the issue of the day because it rained twice in a week. Last year, it rained that much in a day. Many, 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 many of you have said, I haven't had this problem for 25 years, and all of a sudden, and that is proof to exactly what Jim is talking about 50 years of deferred maintenance and neglect. If you go down on 3rd Avenue and 7th Street, you can look at a great big pile of dirt from underneath. If you want to see what a clay tile pipe looks like, they're sticking out of that. They're literally inch-wide terracotta with a dark something glaze on them. And that's what our sewer's going through. That's what our water's going, that's the problem. And I know, Mayor, we don't need to discuss that anymore, but my challenge is that people seem to be forgetting that this isn't a simple answer. I appreciate that. I appreciate, Britt, that you reminded everybody that we are trying to move forward, or trying to move forward with the smoke tests. We're trying to move forward with looking at what else can be done, where else can we fix this. Before I go into the rest of my notes, would either one of you please explain the hydrostatic pressure when it rains and the water becomes saturated, and why water comes up through cracks in the floor of basements, and if that has anything to do with city infrastructure?
Hydrostatic pressure, so that's just groundwater pressing against the basement walls. So basically, your structure at that point is sitting in a swimming pool, and the groundwater is pushing in. And I don't personally feel that has anything to do with the city's responsibility. They're not responsible for ground saturation. You got stormwater that pulls water away, but
And I appreciate that, because in my basement, the water comes up when it rains. When it rained last summer, that's where a majority of my water came from, was up through the cracks, because there's no place for it to go. My house is basically a boat sitting in mud, and the water comes up through the cracks because there's no place else for the water to go. The city has nothing to do with that. There's nothing we can do as a homeowner. I can get fill, I can back dig and put in insulation and all kinds of stuff to prevent that coming through. But it's still going to happen. It's still nature. Water is the most powerful force on the planet Earth. It truly is. It can destroy mountains, and it can destroy buildings. So we're looking at something here that is somewhat out of our control. So I just wanted to also make that known, that if you got water coming up in your cracks or through your walls, that has nothing to do with the city. That has to do with Mother Nature and the way water finds the path of least resistance.
Counselor,
Yes.
I would agree, it has nothing to do with the city, But as a property owner, what I would do if it was my property is that is what the sump pump in the foundation drains are for, is to relieve that pressure on those walls so that it is not coming through those walls, which can, that groundwater pressure can also collapse walls too. But again, that's what sump pumps are supposed to be for, and they're supposed to be discharged outside onto the surface of the ground away from the house so that you direct that water away from the house. And then what you can also do then with an active sump pump then, continually pulling that water away from the outside of your structure, is you will build that reserve so that when there is a rain, there will be some water holding capacity in the soil to act as a bit of a buffer also. But again, so that would also relieve a lot of the ground, correctly installed sump pumps, correctly installed sump pump discharges, foundation drains, when used correctly, will eliminate and alleviate a lot of those issues.
Thank you.
And put some reserve capacity in the ground, where now, it's similar to tiling in an agricultural field. They tile it to eliminate all that subsurface moisture so that, the crops don't drown out. Well, I mean, you're flooding out your basement, not your corn crop.
Right, right, and thank you for that. Also want to point out, there are other cities that are experiencing significant flooding issues and sewer issues. It's not just us, it's not a one-off problem. Again, I just can't stress enough how the deferred maintenance has really created this problem, and we're working on it. We can only do so much. We are struggling to hire folks to do the jobs we need them to do, but when they're not there to do them, we get mad at the staff that are there, and I don't think that's fair to our staff. I think our staff do phenomenal. They are working 24 hours to try to get this stuff taken care of. It's unfortunate that there were 2 floods in a week. That's another thing we can't control. I also, Paul, just want to really thank you. I'm looking at my multiple notes here. Really want to thank you for explaining the gallons per minute and what that looks like. I'm going to do some investigation to figure out what the difference between 800 gallons per minute and 10 million gallons per minute looks like. I mean, I don't think people recognize the power that is coming, and that you can't be ready for something like that because you don't know when it's going to happen. I appreciate the explanation of, and I'd be interested to know what exactly Hibbing does do, and are they diverting or are they bypassing? I think that, I appreciate that you really clarified that point and made that clear distinction, because if they've got problems solved, I'm guessing they're going to make a lot of money on selling it to everybody else around here who's struggling with these things. So with that, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your time today. It does clarify the facts. I also think it helps dispel a lot of the rumors and the finger pointing that goes along with a major catastrophe, and how much our staff and your staff really do work together and communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Okay, anything else, Paul? I mean, we have to take some action steps. We've discussed it. We know what has to be done. You've made those issues clear. Jim has made those issues clear. The public who's affected by this have made those issues clear. So it's the action steps we have to take. I think the first thing we have to look at is what's going to cost for some additional collection systems to divert some of that collection in order to reprocess it later on down the road, and so the communication issue moving forward. So we have to do something moving forward. So you can't wait till the next rain event without taking some type of action steps. So we're asking staff to come up with something for us. So thanks, Paul, for coming in.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Now, what would you like, Pam? Okay.
Mayor?
Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So I don't hear that we've come up with any plan.
Well, we're asking them to come, we can't discuss the plan here. We don't know what needs to be done. We have to have our staff bring that back to us so we can take some action about what we need to do.
Public input, how about that? We try that.
Sir, relax.
I'm fine.
Relax. At the,
Some answers, and I have answers. If you're willing to listen to people in the public, they have some answers and solutions. You obviously don't have them. I do.
Mr. Lancy.
Yeah.
We had opportunities for the general public to speak last Tuesday. They made their issues very clear. We're going to work on some solutions here. If you want some solutions,
That's your answer. That's your answer to everybody here. Just, you can't talk. We don't know anything. I have no expertise at all.
I'm not saying that, Mr. Lancy. What I'm saying is I'm not going to get in an argument with you.
I'm not going to argue with you either.
Everybody has an opportunity to speak. We've always provided that opportunity. We are going to deviate from the general agenda here in order to accommodate some people who have to go back to work. Now, if you want to stick around and address the council, we'll be happy to allow you to do that. But just to come up and just spout out information, we have a protocol here. We ask you to maintain a professional decorum. We'll give you that opportunity. So I ask you not to blurt out and make accusations moving forward. You'll have that opportunity if you like. So if you please have some patience, we'll make sure you have that opportunity to speak, okay? Does that make sense to you?
Relatively simple solution that can be implemented today.
Let's move to item 4 on the agenda, please. And then if you want to wait, Mr. Lindsay, you'll be happy to speak. You can offer any solution you have.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So in my email, I had asked for a pathway, a suggested pathway, and I believe that Matt Reed met with Jim Rosfit and with Paul, and I still do not have those answers. And those are the answers that I was expecting to receive this morning. So I am frustrated, and I also take complete offense to being told that I am, or we are as a body, getting mad at city staff. That is absolutely untrue. We are elected to ask questions and to get to the bottom and to try to alleviate the problems that these homeowners have had. And it is more than just significant rainfall. There's a multiple different facets of different things. And Jim Ross in the newspaper quoted me for saying it might be something else, and quoted our engineer record, Matt Reed, saying it's due to the massive amount of rain. So we have a problem. We are trying to address it and ask the questions. But now, what are we going to wait another 2 weeks to have another discussion, to have a potential plan come forward? I had emailed and asked for some sort of a pathway, and I fully expected that I would be received, that this council would be receiving that pathway, some suggestion on a pathway to take today.
Okay, we'll address that issue right now. I didn't see that email, so I don't know anything about that.
Well,
So when you asked for that email, I didn't get that email. You might have asked for that email. So if you're asking for a plan moving forward, your email should be answered. And so let me ask, Jim, Matt, do we have a pathway moving forward? If we do, please come forward.
Morning. As I stated at the council meeting the other night, we have several things that we're working on. We've got the I&I investigations coming up. We've already completed a stormwater resiliency plan for half the city, which is what the city had money for. We've completed an I&I investigation using flow meters, all kinds of things to try to identify priority areas, and we are continuing to do so. The sump pump ordinance, I believe, is on the agenda for the end of the meeting. That's another item that we could talk about. Paul mentioned some of that already. So I'm more than willing to stand up and answer questions if I can answer them, and talk about direction. The city is doing ongoing I&I efforts to fix different things. Yes, we had heavy rains and it caused I&I. You heard Paul go from the 800 or whatever to the 10 million. That's because we have too much stormwater going into our sanitary sewer system. That's why.
Can I ask a question on that? Okay, so Hibbing stormwater collection, Hibbing storm and sanitary are separate. Ours are not when we go on bypass. Could you explain why they are not separated?
Virginia's storm and sanitary sewer are separate. There's
Well,
two
not when we go
completely
on
separate
bypass.
systems. There's two completely separate systems. The sanitary sewer is the one that bypasses, the storm sewer does not.
Right.
That just has an outlet pipe that goes into the ditch.
So
Multiple pipes, I'm oversimplifying.
when I
but-
spoke with Jim Rosfit, it was stated that ours are together, they're combined.
There are still some interconnections throughout the
Which is it?
system from back in the day when that used to be common. We don't even know where all of those are. They're doing ongoing efforts to try and figure out where some of those are. When we come across them on our projects or our things, we're disconnecting them. There's cross connections between the steam and the sanitary from the condensation lines. That's a contributor. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things there. There are two separate systems, but there are some places within our system that has interconnections that was normal back in the day. It's not that way anymore.
Okay, so if we continue to have rainfall, we can't just blame it on rainfall. And I don't know many other, I do not believe many residents in other communities, as many as the residents in the community of Virginia, received the flooding and sewage damage that our residents in Virginia received. And there has to be a way to address this with an immediate plan for a solution in case we have another rain event. I mean, Paul just stated it was the 17th that we had 4 inches of rain and the bypass valve was not open. Now, Jim says the bypass valve was open. Which is it? Okay, number 1. Number 2, on the 20th, we had, and I'm not trying to hammer on anybody, I'm just looking for answers, because I receive the calls from the residents who expect me, as an elected official, to ask questions and to receive answers. So I want to get that straight. This is not about picking on city staff in any way, shape, or form. This is about getting to the bottom of protecting our residents, and whether it be sump pumps, installation, proper techniques, whatever, check valves, we can address that. As the resident, the homeowner, they can address that, but we need to focus on what we need to address. So on the 20th, we were told that there were 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches I don't believe that was a short amount of time, because my husband was up all night long monitoring that, and we had a transfer pump on top of the sump pump. Okay, so 2.5 inches, we went on bypass at 3:20 a.m., and I believe the rain started at 10 p.m. 10 or 11 p.m. on Friday evening. I think I would have to check that information. But 2.5 inches that's not an excuse for people to have sewage and flooding, and especially if they have sump pumps and check valves and additional sump pumps. So, Matt, I need help here to come up with a solution and a pathway that Virginia can take immediately in case we have another rain event with 2.5 inches, which is probably more than likely going to happen.
I don't have that answer for you.
And you're our
Counselor.
engineer of record.
I've given you options of what we're trying to do. The immediate silver bullet, I don't have it. There's rain contributions, there's operational things, there's problems with the system, there's all of these different things that are going on that are contributing to the problem. It's not just one thing. Believe me, I would love to stand up here and say, just go cut that sanitary line off or open that valve or do something, and all of the problems are gonna go away. I would love to
And
say
I'm not
that.
saying you have that wand. I'm not even suggesting that. What I'm asking is, we have 17 lift stations, is that correct? 17 operational lift stations?
Yeah.
Should we be putting pumps at the problem areas? No, we should not. Should we be having a vac truck there sucking that out as the flow increases?
They're not going to correct that amount of volume. And I'll tell you reasons why this is happening. When did we start cleaning? When I took over 3.5 years ago, we started cleaning excessively on sewer storm lines because everything was plugged up. what do? We basically awoke the sleeping giant. So now you got more flow coming through. Your discharge at your wastewater treatment plant that comes from when you go into bypass, directly drops into the storm sewer line and does not go out to the creek. So you got the storm sewer fighting here, the sanitary fighting here, and they're going to a Y and they're fighting each other to get out of there. The plant's not designed right, in my opinion. We don't have holding ponds. We don't have what does Hibbing hold, 20 million?
20 million.
We hold 3 million. Do we own any property around there to put in retention tanks or holding tanks? No, we don't. We're landlocked.
So how can we, Jim, what can we do? Like, what is a recommendation or a pathway of what we could do immediately to alleviate a potential disaster if we get another 2.5 inches of rain?
My opinion is we extend from the Y at the wastewater treatment plant. We kick the sanitary out of the storm and we run a separate pipe. The ditch can handle that, but that pipe could only take 72 inches, where that ditch is taking 15 feet. There's a restriction there. It's choked up there. We're not sure what we have there because nobody's opened it in 100 years. And that's why we need to televise it. We need to clean it. We need to access these. But when you have a 1,000-foot run, it's pretty hard to do when you don't have the equipment and the finances to do this type of work. You know, like I say, it's years of neglect.
So if we have, I don't know, we haven't declared an emergency, there's not an emergency situation here that can activate any funding mechanism, in my opinion. But how much approximately would it cost to take those steps that you just suggested immediately? To do the separated, so maybe I confused it, but this is what Jim is saying, they're combining. That's what I meant, Matt,
They're combining at the creek.
at the creek. That's what I meant,
So they're restricted. That's only in bypass though.
in bypass, correct.
But
That's what you and I
they're
had
still
talked about.
restricting, which is holding them back.
And is that causing pressure to come back up north, causing part of that problem?
Oh, I'm sure it
with
is.
sewage?
But like I say, we've ditched also, so we've opened our storm sewers more, we've opened our offtake ditches more, things like that. So we're trying to get the water out of the city through the storm.
So back to the question, how much would it cost to immediately put a a pipe in there?
That's all government, there's permitting and everything. I would know nothing about that cost. And I don't even know, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but that's one of the main problems I'm seeing with everything I've done in the last couple weeks. And as far as an email, I never did receive an email from you. I know you're having problems with emails, so.
Okay. Anyway, so I appreciate this wholeheartedly, this conversation. In order for us to do this suggestion that you have, it would be tied up with EPA permitting or MPCA permitting, which one? And is there ever a scenario when the health and safety of residents overrides permitting, the permitting process?
I couldn't tell you from a maintenance standpoint. I mean, you're looking at engineers and the state and everything else and that.
Matt, would you have the answer to that question?
I don't, we'd have to look into it and talk through it. I mean, I'm sure there have been times where health and safety takes precedence over permitting, and
I would like
could
to
look
see
into that.
that being looked into immediately. And I don't know if I need to make a motion on that. I would move to direct city staff, specifically our engineer of record and public works director, to, what would the word be?
I would suggest
just
to
caught
contact the
last
regulatory agencies about extending.
Contact regulatory agencies
About increasing
regarding,
the pipe size and extending the flow of the sanitary sewer line.
okay, of extending the sanitary sewer line.
Well, and that's it.
Support.
And that's where I think they put the chunk of pipe in there.
Did you get
That
Action, Pam.
fuel tank in there, because it probably shot out and you broke it up.
repeat your motion, please, Counselor Paulson?
I'm going to have Britt rephrase that.
It was to increase, it was to contact the regulatory agencies regarding the potential to increase the sanitary sewer line outflow and the length, the distance it goes.
Get that, Pam? Motion by Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. If you just stay seated for a little bit, we're gonna pause, and I apologize for, having to sit here so long. We have the opportunity to speak, but we have a full agenda here. We have people that have to get back to work. So we're gonna allow them to come first, and then you can come back up and speak. So please have some patience, okay?
One thing, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I'd just like to say, we are in the process, that, I've been trying to update a camera. The camera system we have is 30 years old. It runs off a VCR tape. It pushes 180 feet. We need something that'll run 1,000 feet minimal. What we're looking at also does laterals, but I'd love to see us, this is something that's coming down the line, but if we do receive it, I'd love to invite the public to come look to see what we're dealing with. They can come in a trailer, watch on a television what our infrastructure actually looks like. We've seen it to a multitude, but we can show you the laterals to people's homes and everything else, including all of our systems.
Okay, thank you. You have a seat for a few minutes, and let's please have some patience. We'll get you want to speak, no problem there. Okay. Item number 4 on the agenda, real quick. So I know you have to get back, and then we'll come back. So, item 4 is the discuss the Humane Society invoice. Come on up, please. Thank you. What do we got? Okay. Please state your name for the record and welcome to the committee of the whole meeting. Turn that light on to green.
Hi, I'm Nancy Andrews. I'm the chair of the Mesabi Humane Society, and you invited us here today.
Councilor Paulson, you asked for this to be put on the agenda.
I did. I have some concerns, big concerns, with the invoice we received for $32,700 or $37,200. What is it? $37,200, I believe it is. And the cats that came from a St. Louis County tax forfeited property with a case number of that specific 1410 12th Street, 11th Street South. I don't have the paperwork in front of me. And I believe there was 51 cats that were logged into the system at $600 a cat at $30,700 for that one property.
Yes.
And I know there was a case number assigned. Britt brought forward, there was a few that have questions that when the police called, the female might have been pregnant, but it was only for one cat. And I'm concerned as to, I know your policy is to spay and neuter the animals. Isn't that part of your policy? But that's not what the city requires, and it's not a statutory Minnesota requirement. And I believe that charging $600 per cat is way too high. And that I don't know when cats are kittens, and it's on that list of how many kittens, there were tons of kittens. They're too young to be spayed and neutered, so I'm not sure why we're getting charged $600 per animal when they're kittens just born or born at the shelter. And I just have issues with how this billing went. And I understand there's a case number for it, but let me see, I took a screenshot of what Britt just put forward. The invoice page, I think it's the first page, it's reference case number 2506194, and it was reported one cat pregnant, according to our chief, Chief Mattson, and there were actually 3 $600 charges on that one case number. And then second page, case number 2506617, one cat was reported, and 6 charges of $600 were applied to this invoice. Then on case number, it's almost down at the bottom on second page, 250-77450. It says case number does not exist in Virginia PD. Phone call to advise to keep cats in the house only incident. So I'm not sure where those two reports came, but I'm just concerned as to, we need to maybe come up with an agreement as to how we're going to deal with these animals. Do they need to be spayed and neutered? Is that something that the city should be paying for? I know you're running on a tight budget, I totally understand that, but I think it was $30,700 coming out of one residence for the taxpayers to pay that bill is ridiculous. And it's not your fault,
Yeah.
not at all.
Okay, so number one, when we get a call on a hoarding, basically would call this a hoarding situation. It overwhelms our shelter like you wouldn't believe, okay? So when you say $600, we're not saying that's just to spay and neuter the animal, okay? We're looking at, we have staff. We've, since taking in from this one home, we've had to increase staff, we have increased food, we have increased litter, we have offices that are maternity wards. I mean, I have pictures of this house. For our ACO officer to even go into this house, I give her hats off. It was bad, okay? And you said it was a St. Louis County forfeit house, okay? But it's in the city of Virginia, okay? We have a contract with St. Louis County. It clearly is shown what our territory is. It does not include any tax forfeit houses in the city of Virginia.
So that's something maybe the city needs to discuss with the county.
Right, if you want to
regarding
try
the
that
care of
avenue.
their properties.
Another avenue I thought of is, why don't you try to investigate who was feeding these cats? It started out, I'm sure, with the homeowner or whoever, renter who was ever in the house, got one cat, two cats. Pretty soon, the house got out of control for them. I would say the residents left the cats, but somebody went in and fed those cats.
So was the property habitated by a tenant?
I would say probably not.
So
I
maybe-
think they vacated, and the Virginia PD gave us access to the house. So the $600 doesn't just, no, you don't have to spay and neuter an animal. But in our care, that's part of our mission. So this doesn't happen. So we have more animal control. This per cat helps pay for labor, it helps pay for the vetting, it helps pay for the shots, it helps pay for their food. So in a long run, spay and neutering is this much of the care, okay? So I don't want you to think that that's exactly what we're at.
I appreciate the clarification.
Pardon?
I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, that's just like this much of the pie, okay? And as far as the kittens, we didn't even realize how many cats were pregnant when we started to go into this house and live trapping cats. It just happens, you know, all of a sudden this one's pregnant and this one's pregnant. We have had employees that take these kittens home, they're syringe feeding them. We have a vet that one of the mothers died, and she's got them at her clinic, and she's syringe feeding them. So, I mean, you know, we have vet bills, we have everything that comes with it. And these situations overwhelm our shelter. We have to call the state and tell them, we just took in 60-some cats, we're over our numbers, so if the state board would walk in, they know what we're dealing with.
Got it.
So this is big on us too. And we,
I can't imagine, but I think I was just shocked when I saw that.
oh,
invoice, and I've never seen an invoice that large.
Right, and it's a shock for us. Staffing, everything. You know, we've done, over the past year, we've done everything that we could for you. You asked us to bring all animals through the Virginia PD, we have.
Thank you.
You've asked for case numbers, we have. You've asked that we give you a sheet of every intake, we have. So I feel like we've met your standard. And we're doing our part as a community, and we're taking care of these animals. They're getting vetted, they're getting cared for, and yes, we spay and neuter them. As far as the kittens, once kittens are born at the shelter, they become part of our population. We have to give them an intake number at the shelter and log them. So again, if the state comes in, we can't say, oh, there's just mom, but these 15 kittens, we can't say aren't here. They do become part of our care, and we have to account for them.
I really appreciate you both coming in. I mean, I just was shocked that this was even
It's
a thing.
Like I said, I would love to show you pictures.
So I think it becomes a conversation we need to have, because what I would like,
What do you guys want to do?
I would like to
with
assess
this?
the property owner, the total. for
Yeah,
that.
if you
I
can
mean,
find out who was, you know, I mean,
I
probably
don't
a
know if
little
we
too
can
much. I
assess
mean,
the county.
yeah.
I'm not sure if we can assess the county.
No, you can't assess a tax forfeit, but we certainly could send them an invoice. It's worth a shot. I mean,
Right, you guys can, we have specific
Yep.
areas that we can bill for.
And I understand that. I just feel that it's neglect of the property, the maintenance, the
Correct.
boarding up of, or whatever
Right,
the conditions were in that property.
right. And I'm just gonna let you know, we have more phone calls coming into us with other properties, with feral cat situations. There was just a young gal that got bit the other day from a feral cat.
I don't mean to interrupt here. We understand all that.
Yeah,
We're talking about the $600 per animal billing, which is
Okay.
absolutely out of control. So we have to figure that out. We have to figure out how that is assessed. We agreed to pay you $600 per animal. And that was based on a case-by-case basis, one animal here, one animal here. But now you have a significant amount of animals that are here, and now you're charging us $600 for whatever that is. And we got the invoice here. We got the list of us, so we understand that.
Yeah.
We have to pay the $600, and we internally have to figure out how to alleviate not only the costs associated with that feral cat situation, how are we going to recover any funds as a result of that if we can, and then again, we're going to have to reassess and figure out how this agreement between the Humane Society and the City of Virginia, because we can't continue to experience this kind of
yeah,
billing.
you have to figure out what's gonna work for you.
And
And we have to figure out
and
how
you-
we're
and-
gonna
and
stay
you are going to be
open.
affected by that.
Yeah.
We both
And-
will be, so.
Right, and it totally is, because we're totally overwhelmed in situations like this. We're in the middle of trying to find other,
Yeah, we understand.
Facilities.
Yeah, we get that, we understand that, we know that.
okay. So, yeah, if you can certainly take over from there.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the Humane Society? Thanks for coming in, thanks for your patience.
All right, thanks.
So are we deferring the action that we're required to take with respect to the change orders on the public safety building because they had to leave, is that correct?
correct, they asked to come back another,
Okay, so we'll have to call them back for that?
another meeting, yes, not today.
Pardon? Okay. Huh? Yeah.
I would move to pay the invoice.
Okay, moved by Counselor Paulson to pay the invoice that's submitted by the Humane Society for the $37,200 bill for the services provided.
Support for discussion.
By Counselor Motley for discussion, support, further discussion, Counselor Motley.
Did we submit an invoice after to St. Louis County to see if they would pay it? They can only say no. Do we pay it and then see if they'll pay us back?
I think that's a great subsequent motion.
Okay.
Just to send staff to do that.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next motion, please.
Send the invoice, the paid invoice that we paid to St. Louis County. Bill them, thank you.
Motion by Counselor Motley, supported by Counselor Paulson to send a bill to St. Louis County for cost recovery with respect to the Humane Society action on that day and the invoices that were submitted. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay. Britt. Britt.
Go back to item number 2, correct? Mr. Matt Reed, our city engineer of record.
What's that?
Matt Reed, our
Yeah,
city engineer of
Matt,
record.
item number 2, regarding the change orders on the reconditioning deals for these street projects. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I'm just getting my screen to the right spot here. Okay. So on the 2025 pavement reconditioning project, there was a change order. You guys have the information. We're still doing pretty good on that project. It's probably going to be a little over what the original bid was, but we've got contingency on the project. We had done some preliminary work, and it was really probably the worst street that I've ever seen when we finally got the blacktop off of it. To the point where the concrete looked like it had rocks that big. I mean, it looked like gravel. And so, but it was concrete. So long and the short of it, we had to do some extra work out there to get it right. It turned out really nice in the end. So that's what this change order is for. It's for the extra work the contractor had to do.
I'll move change order 1 to the 2025 pavement reconditioning project in the amount of $9,997.82.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to approve the resolution change order number 1. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
By Counselor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Freely.
Is it reasonable to assume then these costs that we're incurring fall within the contingency of this project?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Counselor Beyondich.
So Matt, do you have a cost of what is left in the contingency fund on these projects?
You want me to put a summary together for you?
If you could, please.
Yep.
And the other question I have, well, it's not a question, but when you're redoing these streets to the extent that we are you, obviously you're running into some of the issues that we're having with the flow of water, and those are being corrected as you go street by street?
To the extent that they can be. When we're doing a mill and overlay, we're doing everything inside the curb and gutter, so it's just, it's a patch on a street. It's a Band-Aid. It's a short, in terms of reconstruction, it's a short-term Band-Aid, 10 to 15-year fix. It's roads we've identified that the streets are in really tough shape. Infrastructure's okay, so we're just gonna try to get the streets smoother. So to the extent where we can fix them as we go, we try, but we certainly don't get them all.
So when you do the mill and overlay, you know what's underground?
Sometimes. Jim had his mill out there and milled right down to the base. And like I said, once it made sense to me why there was no concrete there, because it didn't look like concrete, but it was. So we try to do what we can to investigate what's underneath so we know what we're up against.
Okay. And I've been a big one for mill and overlay, but after recent discussions, it's like, okay, do we really know what's underneath there that needs to be repaired at the same time?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked.
Again, to
Thank
the
you.
extent that we're looking for a 10-year fix versus a longer-term fix, we try to match the due diligence with the project costs that we're working with, and it's a shorter-term fix, so we aren't looking for that, what's the subgrade made out of, what's all that, because we're not gonna fix it anyway. Albeit on some of these jobs, we did know that there was, you could tell just by the way the pavement looked, that the base material was not very good. So on 4th Street and Hazel Avenue, Hazel's not done yet, but 4th Street and Hazel Avenue, we're actually doing a little bit of a subgrade correction, or not subgrade, but a base correction to hopefully alleviate some of that. But again, we didn't go as deep as we would normally go. We're just trying to get a reasonable fix for a reasonable cost, trying to stretch the dollar a little bit.
Sure. And I appreciate that, but in light of what's happening, if there are issues underneath, that need to be corrected, that would be taken care of.
If we come across those, we do take care of them, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 2B, approve the resolution for change order number 1 for the Rotary Park sanitary sewer and 7th Street storm sewer at an increased cost of $11,739.80. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. This one also, we are actually running right about at budget this time without touching the contingency. We're just a hair into it. So we were underrunning on a couple other items, and with the change order, we're right back up where the budget was. That was a tangled mess out there, and the contractor actually did a really good job of working through it. There was one part, which is the part of the change order, where we had to deal with some stuff with a steam line and a structure. We knew we were gonna have the conflict and we designed for it. But as it says in the document, there was a casing or a concrete casing around the pipe that caused some issues that we didn't know about based on what we saw in the other structure, so they had to take care of it, and that's what this change order is for.
I'll move the approval of change order 1 for Rotary Park sanitary sewer and 7th Street project.
Moved by Counselor Freely, supported by Counselor Johnson to approve the resolution change order 1 for the Rotary Park sanitary sewer and 7th Street storm sewer increase at a cost of $11,739.80. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Counselor Paulson.
Under item 11, discuss installation of sidewalks, this also on 8.5 Street. This also includes Matt, and I'm wondering if we can move that forward for this discussion.
Sure, we can do that. Matt, item number 11, which is under other items of concern, discuss the installation of sidewalks at 8.5 Street South. Apparently, there's some residents want it, another doesn't want it, or how does that work? Could you please give us a little update on that sidewalk project?
Sure. So back a couple months ago when we were talking about bidding the project, we bid it out assuming we were gonna put the sidewalk back. At the public hearing, there was some, at least one, if not, I don't remember exactly how many, but there were some comments about, do we really need that sidewalk? So Britt sent out a notice to all the residents and said, would you like it or not? I think we got, one response for and one against, right, Britt? And so at that point, the council discussed it and decided, hey, let's save the money and let's pull the sidewalk out. Counselor Paulson reached out, she got a call, she reached out to me yesterday or yeah, I think it was yesterday. And there's some concern where one of the residents has a rock retaining wall. And now with the concrete being gone, the sidewalk being gone, they're concerned that that wall is not gonna hold up. It actually, you can see some of the boulders are actually rolling down into where the sidewalk was. So she had asked about what we could do. I said, well, we should bring it here and discuss it if we want. We can still put the sidewalk back in if the council wants to change your mind. I can't say for sure, but I can't promise that the contractor is going to honor their bid price for it because we already took it out. So we'll have to change order it back in, and I don't, again, I haven't asked them. I wanted to see what the council's desire was first. But likely their subcontractors have taken on other work and things like that, so I'm just prepping you that it could end up being a different cost than what we saw originally. But if it makes sense and it's the right thing to do, so be it. We could also look at putting the sidewalk partway down. There's options, but I guess I would recommend if we're gonna put it in, let's put it in, or if we're not, we're not. So that's what the discussion is about today. Councilor Paulson, if I missed anything, please let me know, but that's the summary that I have.
Thank you, Matt. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to remember that conversation about the sidewalks, and I guess I was under the impression that this was further down, past Fifth Avenue, past Third Avenue, that way where they did not want the sidewalks back. I didn't really. And so the picture that we have in the packet looks like it's from about Sixth Avenue looking east.
An 8.5.
Yep.
And I thought in my head that because there are already sidewalks there and that is a used place, there would be sidewalks in that area, but we wouldn't be putting them down further where they had deteriorated and disappeared. So that was my understanding of what it would look like, because this particular street does have a lot of pedestrian, there's kids and stuff, so that's where I was, and that's what I thought when we had that discussion. In this picture that we have, is this prepped for putting in the sod then, and just the sidewalk from the street? That's what we're seeing?
Yeah, they'll have to come in, and if it's left as is, they would come in and put in topsoil and sod. It looks like it's prepped for sidewalk.
It does.
Really, but, yeah.
I guess my solution would be to put a sidewalk in on one of those sides of those street, and if it does cost us more, that makes sense, because it's a whole different process. But I don't agree with having no sidewalk on that particular portion of 8.5 Street. That's my input.
Okay, thank you. Sir, I saw you raise your hand there. Are you affected by this? Yeah, it's my house. Well, come on up. If you're affected by this, you should have an opportunity to speak.
So it's,
Yeah, go ahead.
so
Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Kubota, 902 South 6th Avenue. So originally, there was supposed to be sidewalks we put in.
Yep.
We asked if you guys weren't gonna put sidewalks back in to not take them out, because my house sits on the sidewalk. Literally sits right on the sidewalk.
This won't come out.
No, that's why they cut it out. Yeah, yep. So, and they,
Nobody asked us. Nobody,
No.
we talked to our neighbors. In the other picture, that is Greg and Ann Flame. This is from my security camera. And so I had called them when they were on vacation because nobody knew. I mean, this is a couple days ago. They had pulled them out, and we were talking to the people pouring the cement in the weird way that they were doing it, just from people's doorways. And they said they were not putting in sidewalks. That was the first time we had heard about it. So Ann's, all the rocks from her retaining wall, and not just her, there's other people with retaining walls down the street, they had all fallen down. So it was like, what are you gonna put there to alleviate that? The sidewalk ends at her door, at our door. It makes no sense at all. We do have children that play there. There are other kids that play on the block. It is a one-way only street. How would I get out of my car? Where am I stepping, in somebody's yard? You know, so it was like, you wanna do a half sidewalk, fine, but there has to be some kind of pathway. When this happened, this was during the flooding, which was beautiful too, by the way. This whole area, look at the picture, this whole area was actually dug up. The whole street was dug up. So the first time it rained, the whole entire thing filled in like a swimming pool. Where do you think that water went? With tears in my eyes, I'm about to say, my basement. My basement is what happened. So not only do we have that, we have it coming through steam pipes. We have a sump pump blowing it out the alley. So I mean, this is the second picture from the second time it rained. And so it flowed down the street like a massive wall. And so again, this all filled in and went into my basement.
So you were advocating for the sidewalk, is that correct?
Yes,
100%,
yes,
yes.
and if you want to do, like they said, like even take half of it or something, I
Yeah.
mean, this is the other side of the street. Like these people, like where do we park? It goes, you know what I'm saying? We get out in people's yards, we walk in the mud, like where do you, it makes no sense.
and I know you guys got like an order on how you guys are doing things, like speaking wise or whatever, but like, we have video of the water coming through our steam pipes that are
Yeah.
supposed to be sealed off.
Yeah.
Like
And
6
straight into
inches
our
of
sump pump,
water
so
in
we're
our
blessed.
basement. You know what I mean?
And
So it's like,
you feel it's a direct result of this contract issue or not?
No,
No,
this
no,
was last
completely
year when it
different.
started,
Okay.
and then
like,
the last two
it's
times
just
it
a
rained.
combination of everything,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like, we're getting hit from the alley side, we're getting hit from the street side, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a double whammy.
So if it's just all dirt then, and it's all cased in like it was gonna be a sidewalk, where does that go? Straight down into my basement now, right? So that's where we didn't agree to not having sidewalks. That was never a thing. We came down here to City Hall and signed with the attorney when we filled out the papers to, yes, you can have an easement or whatever on our property. I mean, we went and discussed, what is this? We don't know what this is. It was never discussed about not taking sidewalks. Anything beyond, like 5th to 6th, anything beyond is just alleys. There are no sidewalks originally, but our street always had sidewalks because we're a half street, we're not an alley.
Okay, thank you. And once again, could you please repeat your name for the records?
Sabota, Brian Sabota.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, folks.
Appreciate it very much, okay. So Council Freely?
So you said there'd be a concern with the contractor, like potentially not honoring the original bid to put the sidewalks in?
They might, but Potentially, I'm not bringing it up to deter you from doing it, I'm just making sure that everybody understands, so there's no question when it comes back. Council originally awarded the project, taking the sidewalks out. So they've basically canceled any of the work that they were gonna have done for the sidewalks. So if you would like to move ahead with putting the sidewalks back into the project, we can certainly do that. We're well within the project budget on this one. So we are well within the project budget. So if you decided you wanted to do it, I would go back to talk to the contractor and ask them if they would be honored, or if they're not gonna honor it, what would the price be? And we could put the sidewalk back on that block. I do agree with them, if you're gonna do it, put it on both sides of the street though. Don't just put it on one, just because they've got their situation. On the same side of the road that they have, there are retaining walls there. And on the other side of the road, as you can see in the picture, there's the rock wall on the other side. So you're better off if you're going to put it back in, be consistent and put it back in on both sides. That would be my recommendation.
So are we deciding today to approach the contractor and get a price for putting those back in, or are we making a decision today that we are putting them back in?
What I would encourage is maybe to forward it to the council meeting next week, and by the council meeting, I'll make sure I get a price for you so you can see it, so that you can make a decision at the council meeting, so that when the concrete guys come into town, we're ready, they know that they have that work to do.
I would make that motion then for Matt to seek that cost so that we can know what we're gonna incur to be able to complete the project as it previously existed.
And bring those costs to the council meeting for action.
Support for discussion.
Moved by Councilor Freely, supported by Councilor Johns for discussion. Further discussion really quickly. If the sidewalks are in, if they were already there, why wouldn't we put them back in? I don't get that. Put them back in. The people deserve, there were sidewalks then, they should have sidewalks now. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is the perfect example of what happens a lot in this room, is we have some vocal people come in and make some concerns about a very specific portion of a project, and then we make a decision immediately without continuing to get more information. I think had we taken a step back, and I accept responsibility for this, and I apologize to you folks for not asking that detailed question, that the folks that didn't want the sidewalk were the ones on the alley portion of 8.5 Street, as opposed to the folks who live on the street portion of 8.5 Street. And if one of us had the time to go, okay, does that mean all of 8.5 Street, or is it just the alley portions? This could have been part and bid appropriately. So I appreciate you folks coming in and bringing this in, because never in my wildest dream would I have said, no, take out a well-used pedestrian sidewalk that is part of your community. The folks that had the concerns down didn't want it because it wasn't part of their community. It wasn't used on that end of 8.5 Street alley regularly. So I apologize for that, and we'll definitely try to slow down those conversations when people do come in, because there's always at least 3 or 4 sides to every concern that comes here. And we listen to the one that's here, and we don't necessarily seek out input from other folks when we make those changes. So I think that one way or the other, that this is a good thing, and we need to be taking care of the citizens who are negatively impacted by this change without that we did not actually research completely. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported to move this to the city council meeting, get some quotes on what it's going to cost associated with this, so we can make a decision regarding the sidewalk request. Is there any further discussion in that regard? Councilor Motley.
Just a quick question, Matt. Is Casper Construction who we were using for that area?
No, that project is not Casper Construction.
Okay, never mind. All right, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Let's go through these two items real quickly, then we go back to the audience here. Item number 5.
The request that I've received from staff and also from council regarding the resolution to increase the public works equipment rental rates, which also includes the shop fee. We haven't increased them since sometime in the early 2000s. It's been quite a few years. And what we do is when the shop fee is charged to anybody we fix their vehicles for, such as HRA and public utilities. So I suggest we do it at the first of the year so they can put it in their budgets.
So
Increase
moved.
the amount.
Move to approve by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
By Counselor Johnson for discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
And this is a problem with a solution directly from the employees. Counselor Friedlieb and I went down and got a tour of Public Works extensively, and that was one of the aha moments for me, was listening to them say they haven't increased shop rates for years. The airport uses it, several other communities use our ShopWorks, so we've been looking for ways to find solutions. And from our employees comes, why don't we charge billable hours like we're supposed to be doing, like every other shop in the world does? So this is not going to solve our problems, but it's going to definitely provide the resources, a little bit more resources down at Public Works for them to do their job better. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 6, please.
Item 6 is a request to approve the resolution to apply for and accept funds from the Iron Range Resources Rehabilitation for Phase 6 of the Economic Development Assistance Program. This is an end of the year. They had extra money left to request, and so they called us and asked if we could use them for downtown businesses for their steam conversions. Of course, we can, so we did say yes, we would love to, and this is the resolution we would need to approve to get that money.
And we're asking for how much?
They had 103,000 and some change left over in the Commissioners Fund, and that's the funds they will give us.
Very good, thank you.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be abstaining from this vote as it potentially could impact my business.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6 with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Item number 7 is a request to review and approve the MPCA grant agreement for the PFAS substance and PMP pollution minimization plan for the wastewater treatment plant.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support. By Counselor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.
And that, to tie to that grant, number 8 is the request from People Service for a contract to provide the treatment regarding the PFAS identification protocol that we need to give to the MPCA, that the MPCA is paying for.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 and item 10 will require some additional discussion, probably significant. So we'll move back up to the area with respect to the people who are in the audience today regarding the information that was disseminated by Paul Christensen, People Services, by Jim Rosvet, our Public Works Director, and by Matt Reed, our City Engineer. So somebody would like to come up, have any additional questions, please do so. And I ask that you be respectful as you move forward. We're trying to maintain a professional decorum here. So if you please state your name for the record and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Greg Lency. So this is exactly how the system worked prior to our flooding. The city employees were trained in to bring in pumps to strategic places in the city. One of them is 13th Street South by the lift station. They would bring in the big diesel pump, it's a 6-inch pump. They'd station that where it needed to be during the day shift. And in other places throughout the city, they had smaller pumps that they placed strategically during day shift. The Public Works Director would have the authority to go into the plant, open the bypass valve, call in city staff to run the pumps. And what the pumps did specifically were, they would actually physically monitor the sanitary sewer level. They'd open the top, look in the sewer level, and they'd see how much room was left in the pipe. And that was at 13th Street specifically. So if that level increased, to the point where it was going to be full, they'd take that 6-inch pump, dump it into the sanitary, and pump it into the storm sewer, which is close by. So what that would do is it would help alleviate all that flow in the sanitary sewer. And also they'd have the bypass valves open at the plant. That was standard operating procedure throughout my life. You can ask anybody here, they've seen those pumps set up there prior to the storms. That big blue pump, it's the size of a pickup truck. So that's how the short-term solution is solved. And I can't guarantee that that's going to eliminate the problem, but I can guarantee it's going to be better than what we had. Simple. They opened up the gates and they had those pumps ready. And Jim needs that authority to be able to open those pumps, the gates, and bring the pumps in place and call whatever people are necessary to run those pumps. It's not Jim's fault. He's correct in saying that every homeowner here has to shore up their own house. You got to get your sump pump working right. It can't be going into the sanitary sewer or down your manhole. Stephen, there's a simple explanation and a solution for your water seeping up through the foundation wall. My basement doesn't have drain tile, did not have a sump pump. Punch a hole in any corner you want, whatever's convenient to run the discharge. Dig down 3 feet, put a plastic pipe in, perforated sump pump, put a pump in there. Your pump will eliminate the pressure from your foundation wall. It's worked for me for years. I've never had a problem. Simple, easy to do. You don't need drain tile. It'll drain the water from below the slab in your house and pump it out wherever you want to pump it, whatever's most convenient for you. It's really a relatively simple solution for that. Now, Jim can verify that that procedure is exactly what happened in the past. Those pumps were put in place during day shift, and the people, the department heads had the authority to call in people, start the pumps, and open the bypass gates at the plant. So short term, that will help us tonight. Make a motion to give Jim that power to go in and take care of that, put those pumps in place. We'll sleep good tonight. The long-term solution, we're working on it. Streets are getting repaired. Pipes are getting put in place. Pollution Control Agency, they're going to look at us and say, you guys spent a fortune here trying to solve this problem. They're not going to do nothing. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to fine the city. You know, they're going to say, you guys are really proactive. You're tearing up every street in town. We're working on it. We got our plant rebuilt. There's not going to be a fine. These people are dying. I mean, they're going up and down steps for days cleaning their mess up, and we're worried about a valve that takes 15 minutes to open. This is nuts. I mean, just open the valve. The only thing I can't tell you is the timing. And in an hour from now, I'll tell you what the timing is to open up that valve prior to a rainstorm. I'll find out. One phone call, I'll find out. I don't know what it is, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. When they looked and that pipe was filling up, they threw that 6-inch pump in there and they pumped it right into the storm sewer. And yeah, it's technically not right, but neither is flooding everybody's basement.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Anybody else? You're welcome to come forward. Good morning. I know Mr. Geiselman, Tom Geiselman from Virginia. Tom?
Yeah, I think and I think Greg mentioned, I'd appreciate if someone on the council would make a motion to either resurrect, if there was a standing operating procedure relevant to placing temporary pumps at these strategic locations, to go ahead and reinstate that procedure or implement a new procedure and make that a motion so that Jim knows that he has the backing of the council to go ahead and take proactive measures. And as far as opening the valve at for PS, I think that should be opened well in advance of a rainstorm and not wait for a high-level alarm. We know the high-level alarm is coming. It comes every time we get a rain event of that size. So I'd like to see the council take that action today.
Thank you, Mr. Geisman. I think that we could do that in the form of a motion. Mr. Rosvet has the authority to do whatever he needs to do to mitigate that, but if that motion is required, we can certainly do that. So let's look for the council for a motion to give Jim Rosvet, our public works director, that option and opportunity to make those decisions to do whatever we need to do. Who moved? Councilor Freely, who supported?
Support.
Address something first, please.
Please, well, let's wait. Moved by Councilor Freely, supported by
Bachschneider.
Councilor Bachschneider. Further discussion, Councilor Motley, and over to Councilor Johnson, but Jim, come forward first. Let's Jim come forward first and explain, and then we'll go for the further discussion. Jim?
I'm fine with that. I don't know what our policy was in the past. I've been running off the existing policy, but be aware, we have 17 lift stations. We have 3 pumps. Are we giving them 3 pumps? Are we going to categorize them to certain locations, or only one person's going to get a piece of the pie? That's why those pumps are staged at our shop. So when there becomes a problem, it's going to that lift station. First, we could have a lift station that lost power and the generator wouldn't start. We're really in trouble. And 2 of our pumps are 6-inch, one's a 4-inch. Pumps are over $100,000, $150,000 each now. We can rent 20 of them. If you want to pay $500,000 for the summer to rent them, I mean, there's options there. I just want you to be aware of, if we stage these sit out, and we don't have the manpower to run 17 pumps either, or that, we do it strategically as we need it. We've got people running all over the city the whole time it happens, so, like I say,
Past practice.
Jim, please continue.
and that's what I'm running off, is past practice. That's how I was brought in here, that's how I was told. And that's what we're running. Have we had a problem before? No, we didn't. Now we've had 2 problems this year. But I see that, I'm gonna fight it no matter which way it goes. It all comes back to Public Works, that, we're the problem, there's a problem there, and it's a lot bigger problem than we're addressing.
Yeah, this is just one part of the solution problem moving forward. Just hang on for a moment here, Jim. So there is an motion on the floor. I think you already have that authority to do that regardless. You already have the authority. You can take those pumps and put them wherever you want. We have a motion on the floor to do that. I don't think it's necessary, but we'll make that motion to make it official, to alleviate any issues that citizens or anybody else has. But the bottom line is, we talked about this before, we talked about this last year, about what we need to do to help this. And when you talk about the new lift stations, you talk about the leaks, you talk about the pumps that need to be purchased, and the cost associated with that, we were well aware of what that costs. So what actions we have to take to help mitigate, alleviate the issues that these people are experiencing is just one piece of a larger puzzle. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And Jim, maybe an answer to that, like, where do you want to do it? And I don't want certain people to get just, whatever you're saying, the slice of the pie. What if we use the mapping that we just collected data from? Have we received data, and how much data?
Over 200 addresses.
I figured we'd get a lot. So maybe we take that data and we focus on those specific areas. Would that make sense? So would that give you a...
And that's what we're doing already. Religiously, they go to Rotary Park, which is up by Holiday Gas Station on the north side. Also to Pearsall, which is behind Menards, and 13th Street Lift Station. Those are usually where they end up. But there are occasions where they might get shifted elsewhere.
Okay, so we've got 3, and then these big blue pumps that were referred to, do we still have ownership of those pumps?
Yes, but like I say, one, we just rebuilt the ejector pump on it again. They're old. They're 30 years old, a lot of them are.
How many do we have, Jim?
We have 3, 2 diesels and 1 gas. The gas is a 4-inch.
We could put 1 at each of those lift stations you just mentioned.
Yeah, but you've got a pump. Pearsall, you pump to Storm. Rotary Park, you pump to sanitary, so you're just pumping to a separate sanitary line because you got about a 500-foot run over to the waterway where the bridge is, you know, we're not even supposed to be pumping across that technically, so. And then 13th Street goes to the already overwhelmed 72-inch lines.
So if we could do, but we could station them on those specific 3 locations to alleviate what just happened.
We could, but then, like I say, if we got problems elsewhere, we're tearing down in one spot and bringing it to another spot, so.
If we bought more pumps, the council agrees to let you buy more pumps, knowing that they're $150,000 apiece. That would help?
You can buy as many pumps as you want, I guess, I mean, if you agree on it, but we can stage them out there, I mean, leave them out there all the time, right, but that's not, it's not the answer to everything either.
It's just a temporary solution, immediate temporary solution until we can get everything fixed.
But we have 3 working pumps with 3 lift stations identified. So we could technically put 1 at each lift station, stage it, ready to go for the next rain event.
And then his concern is, but they do use it outside of rain events. So I would suggest we get at least 1 to have a replacement, 1 available for things that happen outside of rain events.
At $150,000?
Correct.
Okay.
But we don't stage them right away, like I say, but they're staged prior to them being needed. If they're even questionable about them being needed, then the guys are bringing them out, but it's something else we're not leaving out because how long does it take somebody to hook it to a pickup truck and it disappears too?
Okay, I thought that was the size of a pickup truck, so I.
It is, but it's got a pintle hitch on it and it goes right down the road,
Goes
so.
right down the road. Okay. I do have more questions, but we have a motion, so those are just specific to the motion on the floor.
Okay, you got a motion on the floor. You have that motion, Pam, to give Jim that authority. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Counselor Johnson?
I don't understand why we're making a motion of something that already exists. I will not be supporting this. Jim already has that authority. Jim already does everything he needs to do, working in conjunction with other professionals in the city. It's redundant to me. My concern is that when the next rain event happens, what's going to happen is Mr. Rosovit's going to come in here and we're going to point our fingers at him and say, did you do this? Did you do everything we told you to? We made a motion. How come you didn't do it? And he's doing it already. He's already doing his job and he's doing it well. Excuse me, you are out of order. Thank you.
Just one moment, please, sir. One moment, please. Thank you.
And so I will not be supporting this. Jim already has it. He already does it. It doesn't need to be reaffirmed or recreated. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call, please.
Huffy,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Motley,
Yes.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Bachschnider,
Aye.
Friedlieb.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Mr. Geisman, question?
Sorry. Just a quick note on, he already has the authority, which he probably does. Are we doing it? No. I live by 13th Street Station, and over the course of 30 years, I've seen that pump out there many times in the past to alleviate this condition. And in the last few years, that pump never shows up at the 13th Street Station when we have a flood. So he may have the authority, and it may not be his call, whoever's calling the pumps out, but they haven't been there. And I would also, I don't know if the resolution, but we need the bypass valve open proactively also. We can't wait for the system to back up before we open that bypass valve. And I don't know if that's part of what we're talking about here, but anyway, authority or not, it hasn't been done. And whether that's whoever's responsibility, I don't know. I don't really care. I just want something a little more proactive from our city to help us.
Thank you, Mr. Geisman. Okay, anybody else? Before we move on to the next 2 items on the agenda, please come forward, state your name for the record, and welcome to the City Council meeting. Turn that on to green, please. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Phyllis Hokanen
Thank you.
Yuramovich.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I don't know if I can ask it here or if I have to ask Jim. Everyone's mentioned about water has been coming in their house through the steam lines. And why does that happen? Because that happened also with us, not only up the drains, but also we had water coming in through the steam line that we converted, and it all got packed on our end and everything taken care of in our house. We were on the alleyway of the miners, the main steam line. So at one point, when we had the road construction on 8th Avenue, they did say that they were going to come and dig up our alleys and do something to the steam lines. No one ever did. And so how does water come into the steam, through the steam lines into our houses?
So quick question, is that a public utilities issue, Jim?
It is, but I spoke with him on this conversation.
Okay. So to give you an example, same thing. I have a house on North Side real quick. I just bought it. And during the rain event, I had water in my basement. I have every conceivable factor involved to keep that, prevent that from happening. And it came through the converted area where the steam line was converted. There was a patch area there. It was leaking through there.
But they never came in, were they supposed to pack the big main line to the miners?
Jim,
Or, because who do we contact regarding that? What, the work was never done?
Jim, who would you contact for that?
That would be Noah Hines at Public Utilities. My understanding is when the conversions were done, you signed a form that said that you would be responsible, and I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but that's what I was told, that you signed a form that it was your responsibility to cap your service within, at your walls. But I would check with Noah Hines at Public Utilities. They can elaborate on that one for you. I can give you that number in a bit after if you'd like.
Sure, thank you. But that's, the contractor said that they're going to be coming down our alley to do something regarding the main big steam line. And if everyone in our alley, which I know, did it come in yours? Yeah, everyone in our whole entire alley, that's part of how it flooded in our houses, not only the drains, but coming in. So,
Here's Mr. Hines' number.
thank you. Is Public Utilities supposed to come and fix the main steam line that went to the miners? I mean, is it coming off? Because I watched the meeting the other night, and a gentleman stated that, is it because of the ITMEC and the concrete and the parking lot and the flow? Is it coming into 9th Avenue and then just going down the alleys because of where the main steam line was, or?
Well, I would say, Ms. Hokanen, that there's Noah Hines from Public Utilities, they're responsible for the steam lines, any associated costs associated with it or problems with respect to that. So if you give him a call, he should be able to answer that question for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Please come forward. Please turn the light on to green, state your name for the record, and welcome to the council chambers and the committee of the whole meeting.
Good morning, Virginia City Council and Mayor Cuffey. My name is Kathy Merkel. I live on 519 12th Street South in Virginia. I'm here today, not as a public speaker, but to address you and to thank you so much for each of you taking your time and energy and your talents to look at this really very important issue in our city. I'm also here today to ask you to support to alleviate our stormwaters that myself and others are getting in their basements. When we received the first storm, with the tornado warnings, the flooding issues, all the sirens going off, all our texts, I was sheltering in the basement with my puppy Jimmy, shaking, and the sump pumps went off. Thanks to Mayor Cuffey, I do have a sump pump, and I greatly appreciate that from last year. Unfortunately, or fortunately, at that time, I decided to stay in the basement. I had a wet vac. I spent 3 hours wet vacuuming my basement with the wet vac being a 60-gallon container, emptying it 5 times until I was so tired I had to go to bed. That also occurred that Saturday when we received the storm. In addition, I had disgusting sewage in my sink for 3 days. Yesterday, I had casually met with a mayor from a neighboring city. He indicated that they too, and all the cities, do get these problems. As Mr. Ravdiz stated, it would be great to have the telescopic procedures to look at the issues and why this is occurring. I'm going to keep this short but sweet, but thank you. Please support us. This is urgent, this is devastating, very costly and horrific, and we appreciate all your help during these challenging, horrific times. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, anyone else like to speak before we move on to the last 2 items on the agenda? Again, we all, I think it's before, we're also very sorry this happened to you. We do have to mitigate it. We have some conversation about that still. Some solutions have been requested, some information about the past and how the pumps work and those kind of things. I mean, we have to leave no stone unturned and try to create this from happening again, not in the short term and the long term again. And I must say that we do have professional people doing their very best they can moving forward. The system may have failed you, but it wasn't for the lack of effort by the part of our employees. It was just the system itself. We have to mitigate that and find a way in which to ensure that your health and safety is the most paramount part of this whole process. So thanks for coming in. We appreciate it very much.
Mayor?
Councilor Paulson?
So I did get some feedback from the Hibbing plant, and I wanted to share this with Paul from People Service and Jim Rosfit as well. Hibbing is on what's called a gravity system. I don't know if Virginia is a gravity system as well. And I asked, when you go on bypass, do you have to turn a valve 100 rotations? The answer was no. Is it automatic? And I was told, I said, when on bypass, where does the sanitary go? The pond fills up and goes over a weir and out. No valve. We have a 14-acre pond. Then I asked, does your sanitary flow into your storm when bypass occurs? No. All Hibbing's storm flows out by the racetrack. Then I asked, so they flow in different places? Sanitary goes in one direction, storm goes to racetrack? Yes. The sanitary goes to the old north plant, storm goes to racetrack. Same watershed, 2 different discharges. Non-mechanical flows into our 14-acre overflow pond. When that fills up, it flows out to East Swan River, not treated, like 30 million gallon storage. We use our pond for overflow in high flows. We reclaim that water. If it gets too high in the pond, it flows into the creek. So those are things that Hibbing is currently doing, and I would strongly suggest that we confer possibly with how they are doing operations. They are not on a manual. I don't know what, I'm not an expert, so I don't know what that means, but I would hope that we could get that information and to help assist us making some important decisions going forward with the processes at the plant and bypassing. And then I did not receive an answer, just the last final thing, Mayor, an answer, Paul, that you had stated there was no bypass on Monday. Our Public Works Director stated there was a bypass on Monday. If a bypass occurs, it needs to have a case number and reported. So I would like clarification. Was there a bypass that happened on Monday, or was there not?
I'll look into it. Like I say, I wasn't quite sure, but I got a lot more in my pocket than you really think.
We'll get the answer for you, Counselor.
Thank you for that.
We'll get an answer for you. Jim? Yeah, come on up, Jim. Thank you.
You know, we're going back again to comparing apples to bananas. 20 million or 30 million holding ponds to a 3 million holding pond. Two separate locations. We don't have that option. We'd have to dig up the whole city to reroute our storm sewers to run a different location. Everything in the city runs to the south. That's because we've got a hillside before us, and everything comes down that hill, and it's got to go south. We don't have an option. And in your outlets, you're surrounded by mine, you're surrounded by other cities. Your only discharge area you can go out is behind that wastewater treatment plant that goes to 3 Mile and 4 Mile Lake. There are no other options. Like I say, we've got to change the amount of flow and have the resources to take all of this out of the city. It's a process. We're working on it. Is it going to happen overnight? No. Do things get worse before they get better? Obviously. But we're doing what we can.
And I just want to say, I truly appreciate that, Jim. I truly do. I appreciate the conversation that we had last week. It was very refreshing because I don't know these things and I don't know the answers, but I do know a council member just asked, they would like to know what's going on with Hibbing and what, maybe some clarification. So that's why I brought that up. I was not trying to compare our community to a different community that has quite a lot more land and a different landscape. I just was trying to address the question that was brought up.
All right,
But
thank
I
you.
do feel that you're a really nice guy, Jim. I get along with you. This is nothing personal. I'm truly just trying to dig in, ask the right questions, and trying to come up with the best possible solution with you, Jim, and Matt Reed.
And we are. And like I say, it's not anybody's fault here. It's all of our successors before us. It's been neglected, and neglected. And now we come into a mess, and we're here to straighten it up. I took this job on a whim to take some corrective actions to try to get us going in the right direction. Year and a half, I've got to go. I'm looking forward to somebody stepping up to take this job. And like I say, we're trying to go in the right direction, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, and things don't happen overnight.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. We've only got 2 items left. So let's take 5 minutes. I have a medical appointment that's been waiting for 6 months and I can't miss it. So I'm gonna have to leave by, in 15 minutes. So let's take a couple minute break and then we'll try to address these last 2 items. Otherwise, I'll have the vice mayor take over the rest of the council meeting. Let's take a couple minutes, be right back. Thank you. Okay, let's get back to work and address the last two items on the agenda, please. Britt, item 9.
Item number 9 is to discuss the quotes received for the golf ball barrier from the 5/6/25 committee of the whole meeting. There's two systems, one with the portable nets that have the movable bases, that only goes to 12 feet high, which I don't know that that's high enough. The other system is a temporary system that you put little pockets into the ground, and then you put the poles in the pockets, and then you take them out whenever you need to take them out and put them back in when you need to, and that goes to 20 feet high.
Just as we're looking at this thing, so I'm taking some long-term proactive measures here. All the trees that were taken down that were dead and diseased to help alleviate some of the potential concerns the citizens have regarding damage to their homes. Those have already been alleviated. We did a partial replacement of the fence. That's just a small barrier to keep people from in and out of there. We moved the fence in to prevent damage to the fence from the snow plowing. We also planted new small saplings. They don't look like much, but they're a cottonwood blend that don't bloom flowers. They're a fast-growing tree that grows up to 50 feet. They go 4 feet a year. And so those are 10 feet a year. Excuse me. Thank you for that clarification. 10 feet a year. So they'll be growing up high. I think the request was for a 20-foot golf course barrier at a cost of $300 and some thousand. This will help alleviate that over a 4-year period. So this golf course quote we have could be just a temporary measure moving forward until those trees mature to prevent any golf balls, or help prevent any golf balls from going into people's yards along the 11th Avenue corridor. So before you today, you have a couple of quotes for golf course barrier removal. And there is a golf course barrier at the old, or where the current driving range is. It's similar to what's located in there. It stays up there all year round. It constantly has to be repaired. It's not impervious to weather conditions. It doesn't come up and come down at the same time. So before you have a quote moving forward, and as we discuss this further, we may bring our Park and Rec director up to have for a little more information. So this is on the agenda. I think this is something that we all are taking a look at. And Councilor Paulson, you've been a strong proponent for this golf course barrier moving forward. So before you have the quotes, any questions, comments from the council with respect to the issue before you today? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So these would go, how tall, Britt? Only 20 feet?
20 feet.
And that will eliminate or not eliminate the
And
arcing?
I can't guarantee that anything will eliminate all of them, because it depends on the golfer. And if they're intentionally trying to slice it upwards, it may go over the 20 feet.
And what would your recommendation be?
Speaking with Brian, I recommend we do the 20-foot high, just because I think that 12 is just too darn short.
This is the removable aluminum post version on that. And is there any, do they go any higher than that?
No, that is the highest they go.
Like the top golf ones?
Yep.
Have we researched?
These are the movable ones. The ones I researched for the other ones, we had to use flagpoles because to go higher, if you recall, and the cost for the flagpole was $20,000 a pole.
Okay.
And then the netting. So this is just trying to be a temporary solution at a better cost than that we could stomach.
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. One of the concerns when we first started talking about this was the poles in relationship to utilities that are present. How does that play into where these may or may not be able to go?
They will have to be 10 feet and 10-foot clearance from the electrical poles.
And is that a hindrance to folks playing? And I would ask again, if it's either 10 feet into the golf course or 10 feet into the street? I mean, I'm just trying to get a visual of where these would be, and are they really solving the problem, or are we making people feel good about trying to solve a problem? Because 20 feet, in my experience with golf, even I can hit a golf ball 20 feet high. And I don't understand if they're hitting houses 20 feet, 10 feet in from the electrical lines is probably not going to stop much at all when it comes to, but I would, so that would be my first question. And then the other question is this a budgeted amount? And if not, where are we getting $25,000 from? Or whatever the total is, $24.99 or, so those are my three questions.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. I apologize, I have to leave. I have a 10:50 appointment. So just one quick comment before I go about this golf course barrier. The fact is that these golf balls that go into the neighbors' yards on 11th Avenue, the apex of that ball is higher than 20 feet. So take that under consideration moving forward. Thank you. Councilor Paulson and Vice Mayor, would you please take over the meeting? Thank you.
Any further discussion or a motion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I haven't spoke much on this. I live very close to the golf course, but I do often walk the avenue along the golf course. I always walk towards where they're putting or golfing from. I've picked up many golf balls that are not in the golf course, so I have a lot if anybody needs golf balls. But I did stop and talk to a neighbor. As I was walking last night, I saw the youngsters playing golf, and I knew they hit the ball, but I lost track of it. But I did hear it hit. And I stopped and talked to a gentleman working in his yard, and I said, "Did that hit your house?" He said, "No, it hit Buskey's house." And I think what happens, if the golf ball hits the ground, it's not an issue, but it's hitting pavement, and it bounces and hits hard. He showed me his picture window that faces the golf course that has been broken 3 times. Insurance pays for it, but he does have to pay the deductible. They have an 11-month-old child. They have a beautiful front deck that they cannot sit on for fear of the golf balls. And I asked, how long has he noticed? He's been there for 5 years. It has continually gotten worse. The golf ball that was hit last night, as we were talking, 2 young children went zooming by with the golf cart. They were the ones who hit the ball. He said even if people stopped and said sorry or acknowledged the hit, but it is, and not 10 minutes later, 2 adult men came by, "Where's my golf ball? Did you see it?" So I feel for them. I know they live by a golf course. I don't remember years ago having this much of a problem. And you're right, Councilor Johnson, the 20-foot, I'm afraid it's going to hit over, bounce, and do the same amount of damage. So I'm not sure what the answer is. He asked what the council was trying to do to help alleviate this, but he said in the meantime, my wife and child sit on the backside of our house for fear that a golf ball is going to come and hit them. So I'm struggling with this too, because I know 20 feet isn't that high, and when they they launch it and it comes over that, it's when it hits pavement that it takes that hard bounce and just hammers them. So it was an interesting conversation, to say the least. So I'm not sure what the answers are.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Johnson?
Well, that's helpful to know. Would it make sense to put these on the residential side of the street? So the golf balls can come in, bounce on and then they're not bouncing 20 feet up, but put them right on the edge, in the gutter, whatever. I mean, if that's the problem we want to solve, put a net in front of folks' house on their side of the street so that it's bouncing back towards the golf course. I don't know. I don't know how these work. I don't know if that's even a plausible. But then again, my second questions did not get answered. Is this budgeted and where does the money come from?
It is not budgeted, but I do have Brian Silver here, the Park and Recreation Director, that can discuss the golf course budget.
Brian?
As Britt said, this is not a budgeted expenditure for this year. So really, we have two options to consider. Making an unbudgeted expenditure out of the golf course or out of the park budget for this year for this. The park department does have a fencing line that it could fall under, but this would exceed that line. Another option would be, but it's not going to solve the problem now, is I could amend my budget request for fiscal year 2026 and add this cost to the budget request that is currently being developed for council to consider. If we wanted to expend those funds this year as an unbudgeted request, currently the golf course is sitting good. Having just pulled a budget report this morning, the golf course at this point for 2025 is operating at a $50,000 profit. However, keep in mind that the revenue generating portion of the year is shorter than the expenditure portion of the year because the golf course will be closing down. I cannot guarantee what the revenue will be for the month of July, August, and September. So I'm a little leery at this point in the game to say we're sitting pretty for year end. But historically, we typically are not revenue positive at the end of June. So there is that good news.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have any further? Counselor Friedlieb, and then Counselor Beyondich.
I remember seeing something you provided to us, maybe Larry alluded to that, a fast-growing aspen tree of some sort that you have. Do you have access to those?
We planted 6 of them along there this year. They were only little saplings when we planted them. That's what Mayor Cuffey was referring to of trees that we have planted along there that are growing 10 feet per year. Those have already been planted this spring. If you drive by through there right now, there are wooden stakes in the ground. Councilor Beyondich, you may have noticed those stakes. Those are marking where those saplings are so that as they are mowing, they do not mow down the sapling because they were little. But they are supposed to grow at a relatively good clip. We also planted a couple of those along Bailey's Lake, and those are taking nicely and starting to grow.
They didn't have any that were larger than saplings, like seedlings?
We bought them through the University of Minnesota, so this is the size that they come.
Okay, I just think that a natural barrier would be more aesthetically preferable to that area than
Absolutely.
mechanical apparatus of some sort, because I too don't know that it would be that effective when somebody's teeing off and it's going to be significantly higher than 20 feet, I'm sure, so. And I know it's an imminent issue for people that live in that area, there's no question about that, but sometimes things take time to make it better than it is, and preferably would have planted those trees 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, but we haven't, so at least we've intervened in that regard so far and can just hope that they'll grow and be a barrier of some sort that's protective beyond what's there currently, so.
I would also like to point out that the Men's Golf League has been doing a tremendous job of fundraising, and they have now raised funds and donated to the city to purchase 12 trees through our memorial tree donation policy. Several of those trees are going to go in that area also. We've chosen maple trees that will be going over there. They do not grow as fast, but they will grow and provide a very nice natural barrier in years to come. That does not solve the problem today.
Thank you, Counselor Friedlieb. Counselor Motley?
I would have to agree with Counselor Friedlieb. Probably a natural barrier, which is not going to solve the problem today, as Brian alluded. I do golf every now and then, and 20 feet is not high at all. So I don't know, if we put something like this up, would it maybe appease some taxpayers just to see that the city's doing something? It's possible. Would it correct the problem? In my opinion, I don't think so. But I'm happy to know that the city is moving forward and taking proactive action with the planting of some of these fast-growing trees. And I also want to extend a thank you to the men's golf club that is also, it looks like, financially helping to assist with that. So at this time, I guess that's where I stand. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Counselor Motley, Counselor Beyondich?
Just an idea. Could we reach out to local surrounding greenhouses to ask if we could purchase them either at cost or donations, some trees to put in? And the second part is, are there grants out there that we could apply for this issue?
To answer your question, I'm going to ask a question. What type of trees are you referring to purchasing? Just more like maples or elms or?
Whatever you think would work best.
Okay. What would work best to get it solved quickly are these quick-growing trees. Last year, we planted a couple of cedar trees that are supposed to be faster-growing trees. They have taken and they are growing, not as fast as any of the residents would like. It will take several years before they are providing that natural barrier. This tree the cottonwood that grows quickly is a U of M tree from their ag campus. I have not seen it commercially available. That's why we bought it directly from the U of M's greenhouses, and it's only a couple of inches tall as we got it, so I don't know if we'd be able to find a more established version of that tree. And most other trees are slow and steady growing. So while adding trees in the long term is a great option, it doesn't solve the neighbors' complaints today. I'd be happy to share with any of the neighbors these netting options that we've found if they are interested in installing that on their property. Throwing out or listening to the council's discussion, if the city wanted to evaluate, and we'd probably have to go to a street and alley with that, evaluate putting the net on the property owner's side of the street, that may help a little bit more because, as you pointed out, once the ball hits the street and ricochets, it hits hard. The problem is sidewalks that come out to the street, we would have to leave an opening for. I think there's one there.
There's sidewalks that come down to the street, but not on that avenue.
Not on that avenue? Okay, I was thinking there was one house that had a sidewalk that came down there. But also then leaving the opening for streets and alleys. We're not completely alleviating the problem, but we would have an impact on it.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Brian, I do have a question. If this moves forward and we find that the 20-foot height is not solving the issue, can these be repurposed somewhere within the golf course itself?
We could possibly use them over on the driving range. Right now, we have one length of the driving range with the net preventing balls from going down onto the road. We could put it on the other side eventually, preventing stray golf balls going onto the course itself, but that's really never been an issue that people have been complaining about. So we could use them at the driving range, need be, but
So
we're-
potentially you could repurpose if they were not effective. Is that a fair answer?
Yes, there is a possibility we could repurpose them in other areas in the golf course if they were not effective on hole 2.
So it would be how much is the total here on 20?
Depends on which option we are looking at. There were 2 options for you to consider. One is 14,000 and one is,
24.6, right?
yes,
And what is the difference on those 2 options? Is it just height? The height? Okay. So it would be the $24,000 option. And that we just don't know if it would be a working solution. And the other solution would be going higher, which is flagpole, which is very expensive. I'm kind of at a loss because I hear all the complaints there's property damage happening now, significant property damage, and I did address that with Britt. And have you been in contact with the homeowner that I sent you that connected her via email? Yes. Okay.
We actually have a meeting with our
Okay.
insurance company on Thursday, so.
Okay, and so what kind of has been happening too is that the League of Minnesota Cities has been turning down residential claims. And so it's my concern that, we tell the people, file a claim, and they do, and it's getting denied. They're putting up new siding, it's getting dented, picture windows are getting smashed. Children could potentially be in harm's way, and I feel like this really is a public safety issue. Do we have the money? No. But is this something that we would be willing to experiment with for $24,000 to see? I guess that's what everyone will have to decide. But I feel that something does need to be done because of, I've received probably 4 different calls from residents right there that have all gotten dented siding, hit, picture windows, and an awning. So I don't know what your recommendation would be, but I truly feel that we need to solve the problem if possible, and this might be a way that we could at least try if those could be repurposed somehow if they didn't work. And that would be my thought process on that. That's what I have. Okay, Counselor Johnson?
I would make a motion to direct staff to investigate putting the nets up on the residential side of the street to alleviate the angle of attack from the balls.
Motion is to direct staff to only look at the residential side or on the golf course side as well?
Well, quite honestly, I think we've determined the golf course side's going to do very little. I think if we need to put or as close to the targets, the houses as possible, and if there's a net on the curb and the house is 10 feet back, it's going to stop balls except for maybe hitting roofs or further back. So we've decided that, I don't know, putting up a net just to put up a net is not, I won't vote for that. I want to make sure we're actually solving a problem for this.
Matt?
I looked real quick, as we were talking, is there room on the residential side of the street? There really is not. We need to have enough room for plows to put snow over there. Need a little bit of clear zone for if people get a little crazy and driving 30 miles an hour, drive off the road. And there's some trees and some other things that are right there in people's yards. So unfortunately, I wouldn't spend any more time looking at the residential side of the street as an option. I'd focus on the other side.
Thank you, Matt.
With that, yes, we still have a motion on the floor.
I will remove my motion.
Motion is withdrawn. Counselor Beyondich?
Thank you. Britt, have you had conversation with the residents at all for their input on this or possible solutions? Are we involving them in this discussion?
I've spoken to quite a few, like Counselor Paulson has suggested, and I don't know that anybody's got one specific answer, and a lot of them are asking what changed, as nothing's happened, and then all of a sudden it's happening all the time. And like we discussed this morning, the trees coming down because they either fell down or they were diseased was a big thing. Those were really tall trees and they were blocking a lot. Nobody's got a good solution. I mean, it's
How many trees actually came down on the golf course?
On the golf course or along hole 2 in that area? I believe in the past 3 years, I can think of 5 trees along hole 2 that were on on the golf course property, and 2 trees that were deemed to be boulevard trees that were on that street also that have come down. So a total of 7 trees in that area in the past 3 to 5 years.
What about on 13th Street North, the 9 and 1000 block? I think you've only taken 1 or 2 trees down there.
Yeah, I can only remember 1 or 2 trees along that area that have died that we have removed, but I could be wrong.
And that's another street I walk. I've heard the clunk of the balls hit those trees, and I've picked up a few on that area also. So I'm not sure if it's so much how many trees. I mean, we talked last night when I discussed it with the gentleman. There's a lot more younger, unsupervised young adults out there. And there's no warning. There's no yelling for, so at least you know to look for a ball coming. It is just whacking them and getting on that cart and running. They're just driving by and smiling grandly that their ball hit somebody's house and off they go. So I don't know, it's probably a little bit of both. So
We could post more signs for golfers to practice golfing etiquette. Problem is with the younger golfers, they may or may not practice that etiquette. That is something that we do combat on the course on a regular basis, and the golf course staff tries to address it as they can. Unfortunately, we do not have course monitors at every hole all the time because that's just not feasible. I think one of the reasons that we have seen an increase in stray golf balls is because we have also seen an increase in the golf course utilization since 2020. Looking back on historic revenues for the golf course, you can see that in 2018, the golf course operated at over $100,000 deficit for the year, whereas we have that deficit trimmed down, and our goal now on an annual basis is to be revenue neutral. So that's thanks to the number of people golfing, because we have not jacked up our prices. We've improved our golf course and more people are utilizing it. And with more people, I mean, that's more golfers, that's more stray golf balls.
As we've seen in this council chambers, I would really like to invite the residents that are affected by this and have them help us come up with a solution. I would like their input.
Why don't we have a buildings and grounds meeting and invite them to that meeting?
Yes.
To have that conversation and kind of lay out what we've talked about, the problem with the power poles, the trees we've put in so far, any other solutions. Ask them flat out, do you want to put some kind of screening in your yard? What can we do to help? That way we can get everybody in the same room kind of and at least get a conversation going with everybody.
Right. And I think that would be helpful because
Yeah.
I don't think residents understand the limitations that we have. So I would like to see at the next meeting that they are invited to a meeting so we can have open discussion on it, if that's okay.
Thank you for that, Counselor Beyondich. I do have one more thing to add, and when I spoke to the League of Minnesota Cities, our insurance adjuster, he had indicated that part of the reason the claims are being denied is because it's a golfer's responsibility. And Colleen, I don't know if you have any case law or precedent to back that up. I'm sure that's the case. But could there be anything the city could do legally to, like on their golfing card or something, to let golfers know that if they are a party to property damage, that they would be subjected to but like a monetary criminal
charge or a civil lawsuit.
So it's a criminal, type of a criminal. I think that's where I'm going with that. Two of the episodes that I've been contacted by the residents, the golfers came back to the property to actually get their ball. They did. I feel that one of the last incidents, they actually did get the golfer's name.
So then they have their own potential.
And I guess what I was wondering is if, could we put a potential notice to people using the Virginia, you may be liable to property damage, to allow, or to maybe cause a little bit of a pause before they hit
So
on number 2 hole.
suggesting at the second hole tee box, a sign that says, choose your club carefully, the hole is X number of feet away, a $1,000 window is 500 feet away. Something, I would do something
Maybe
fun,
not
and
quite
then
as wordy,
in
but-
finer
Yeah.
font, put that stray golf, damage caused by stray golf balls is the responsibility of the golfer. Does that cover our liability?
And I would maybe have you consult with legal to craft something,
Yeah.
but I feel like that might be some of a way of a deterrent, along with having the conversation with the residents to see what good solutions we can come up with. And then the last thing I have, Brian, is there were the 2 or 3 trees, the newer ones, I feel like they were planted maybe last year on the outside of the fence.
Yes.
And
The pine trees?
I'm not sure, I think they're pine.
Okay.
I think they are. And when, I have been contacted about those trees, and when I've driven past there, I can see the concern when they grow tall, gonna go back into the power line. Could those trees again be moved into the course deeper for a better buffer when they do mature? Then they will catch those balls as well. Could we move those? I know the original intent was to keep the trees on the outside to prevent the plow from hitting the fence. But if we're gonna use different mechanisms for a barrier, since that fence is really not really
And that,
a deal.
the chain link fence is not there to stop golf balls.
No, correct.
The chain link fence is there to stop people from accessing the golf course and not paying.
Right. But I'm just asking then if those trees could be, I understand what the initial thought process and reasoning was, but when you look at where they're planted, they're gonna grow right up into the same power line where they cut them down from.
So we did scoot them back farther from where the original trees were. We worked with Range Landscaping that did the
I remember
planting of
that.
those trees, along with Etowah Virginia Public Utilities, keeping in mind the size and shape that those trees will be to hopefully mitigate those trees getting into the power lines. It's not really that helpful for the tree itself to be redug up and moved at this point.
So that was a request from a homeowner, and I don't know if, Britt, you want to, I can give you the information if you both want to address that with the,
I'd be happy to go out there and take a look at those
and just
trees
see.
and location and.
Okay, but I feel like that's the right idea, putting the natural barrier there. And I like Counselor Beyondich's suggestion regarding getting the residents together at maybe is it a Buildings and Grounds meeting? Is that what it would be? So how do you convey that, Britt? And then do we need a motion?
I think it's a motion, and we need to set a date anyway. We have some ideas, some things we need to put on Buildings and Grounds. So I think we make a motion to set the meeting to invite the residents, and I'll work with the chairperson on
Okay.
date and time.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Counselor Motley, is there support? Support by Counselor Friedlieb, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, is there one more item on the agenda? Clearwater discharge, Britt, if you want to go ahead with that.
And Pam may have more information on this. Counselor Bachschnider had asked Pam to put this on the agenda.
Yes, she did, thank you. Counselor Bachschnider asked that this be discussed at the meeting today regarding enforcement and potentially bringing this up again for the Public Works or whoever may be inspecting for those sump pumps, and that everyone is following the ordinance. And I don't know if we want to discuss more today or hold off for another meeting when she is here.
Counselor Friedlieb?
I don't have enough data to back up any knowledge of the effect that those people who aren't discharging appropriately has on the situation that we have been experiencing. And my biggest concern, there's a sensitivity here that obviously the city has a problem, and immediately turning and pointing fingers at residents that we're going to make you comply with and enforce something that many of them already do and can't really have any control over their neighbors doing the same. I'm a little sensitive to that, and I think that kind of bubbled up the other night when somebody mentioned that right away. And when you're talking about 10 million gallons of water passing through the system, when normally it's 1 million gallons passing through the system, my question would be, of those 10 million gallons, how many of those gallons are actually Clearwater discharge that's not being discharged appropriately? Is it 1,000 gallons? Is it 10,000 gallons? Is it 1 million? I don't know. So from my perspective, just the sensitivity towards the public, it's an issue. I don't deny that. And I did talk to some people at the LMC conference that were in engineering as well to discuss this with them. And one engineer did say, no, it is a concern. But that may be so in a city of 100,000 or 200,000, but 8,000, I don't know. So I think we need to be sensitive of what we're conveying to the public right now, that yes, we do need them to make the changes necessary to the systems they have in place so that they're discharging appropriately, and encourage them to do so. But I don't know that it should be with the immediate threat that we're going to be holding them to compliance and enforcement, or at least make an announcement that this is what we need you to do. And in the future, we would be then coming to see if in fact that's happened. So anyhow, there is a significant sensitivity here in this community right now with regard to what's happened. And just for anecdotal, I mean, I've lived in my house for 40 years. The first time we had water up to our ribs in the basement was 1994. And what happened at that time, I guess, there was a collapsed catch basin of some sort over by Mill 40 that had to be repaired. And then after that was done, we never had any problems until last Monday. And so that was the second time. And And so, and then we had the third time on Friday, so, and the year prior. So like, we've had, in 40 years of living there, there's been 4 instances of us having sewage back up in our basement, but 3 times in the last year. So there is an issue that we need to address, which we are, and how successful we'll be able to do that with any kind of rapidity or, you know, it remains to be seen, because we don't know precisely what needs to be done. Some of these suggestions made today may be in fact very, you know, effective. It remains to be seen. And we can't continue to deny, you know, how much rain is coming down in a short period of time that's inundating a system that should be able to handle that, but may not. I mean, if we're having 100-year rains twice in a week, we've got more issues than just the system itself. Mother Nature can be a bee, let's face it, she can. So, and nobody's really willing to really address that because of the whole controversy over climate change and so on and so forth. But the reality is we're getting a lot of rain in a short period of time. Certainly we did last week, and it caused flooding that was disgusting for all of us, including my wife and I. And so I feel for everybody. And so getting to the point is, like, if we're gonna really put emphasis on clear water discharge, I'd be cautious about how emphatic we're going to be about that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Friedlieb. Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to provide a little background on why this got added to the agenda, because Counselor Bachschneider stopped in when I was over here last Wednesday for office hours, and we discussed this a little bit. And it really came from the context of two ways, I guess. One was what Paul had talked about earlier with, we've got a number of contributing factors. No doubt that there's problems with the city system. That needs to be fixed, and it's ongoing. But there's also contributing factors from private sources, whether they even know it or not, is you know, nobody's maybe intentionally doing it, but there are some of those sources as well. But also, if they're connected into the sanitary sewer and they're experiencing sanitary sewer backups, depending on the shape of their check valve and things on their sump pump, that could be coming in through there. So, you know, that's another reason to not be hooked up to the sanitary sewer. Because if somebody, obviously I haven't talked to anybody individually or multiple people, but if they're seeing sanitary sewer come back in through their sump pumps, that could happen. So, just something to be aware of. And that was really the context of getting the discussion going again. And then, you're right, Councilor Friedlieb, but there's a sensitivity to that right now, no doubt. The smoke testing is going to potentially pinpoint some of these too, so.
And so, can I ask, Mayor?
Counselor
Vice
Friedlieb?
Mayor? So, like, is every house in Virginia required to have a sump pump then? Or what determines whether or not you should and need to have one?
No, I think what the
ordinance states and what the state statute actually states, there's a state statute that goes with this, is that you cannot have a clear water discharge connection into your sanitary sewer. Whether it's from your roof drains, from your groundwater, from your drain tile, none of that can go into the sanitary sewer. It must go outside. It's called clear water, and they don't want us to treat it. They want it to be back out in nature where it belongs, not into the sanitary sewer system.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, so if you have a home where
You have a home and your drain tile are tying into your drain and your floor, you need a sump pump.
And how do you know that? I don't
You have to have inspections.
Okay.
And so
I may in fact need to have a
Right.
sump pump and I've never had one.
When I started here in 1999, I started here as an intern to answer the phone for those phone calls. We had a sump pump compliance program. That ordinance was in effect, the state statute was in effect, so we had everybody in the city inspected. And there was a firm that was here in 96 to 98 that we suspected they didn't do as well as they should have.
Yeah.
Because they've told a few people that, oh, you're fine, those drain tile are clear, you'll never have a problem. And then in 99, we had a flood. We had an actual FEMA disaster that took out most of 6th Avenue and the bridge that we had to have repaired and everything. So that's been how many years now? So people have changed the way they put their gutters in, the way they put their drain tile in, the way they do their things, and they may not know that they bought a house that has this connected, and it may not even be anything on their radar.
Yeah, and a house built in 1905.
Exactly. That's how they did it back then. You know,
Right.
I know there's
Just went
downtown
into the
businesses.
sanitary.
100%.
Okay.
Because it was allowed and it was legal. And then in 96, the state changed that. And then we had to proactively start changing that too. My house in Aurora, the city of Aurora was mandated by MPCA to implement the program where they will inspect every single house in Aurora. And they just completed that. So
All right.
it's
Thank you.
probably going to be coming again in our next permit, like Paul alluded to, our MPDS is coming up. We're probably going to have that same mandate coming soon too.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just, also, one quick thought. Maybe we have this discussion regarding compliance or assisting of the homeowners, educating of the homeowners, once we have some sort of funding mechanism in place, so that there's a hand-in-hand. We are asking you to have an inspection, we are asking, you to do whatever is ordinance compliant. But here is some funds in order to offset that, and I wouldn't call it a mandate because it was a statute in 1996, is that what you said? So maybe just helping people get up to speed and compliance, but I do feel like it's a very sensitive issue. And I don't know that, if we're gonna do this, I don't know, Britt, if you've reached out to the IRRR yet and what they.
I have not yet, but that's a good idea. We should.
About requesting some funding to put together a package, just basically like the utility company did on a no-interest loan situation. And do you need that in form of a motion?
That'd be wonderful to at least start the conversation.
I thought we did do that. Yep. So I thought we did, and that was at the night of the council meeting? Okay. So if we could get feedback from, on the next council meeting regarding that, because their funding cycle, I think, is
Start here soon.
today. Yeah. And then I feel like that we could have ongoing discussions regarding compliance, but not put it out there during this sensitive time. That's what I have. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on that item, or should we just move it?
I think we keep continuing it on the agenda.
Keep
That's okay.
Keep it on the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, very good. Is there any other items of concern?
I do, Vice Mayor. We are taking applications for the finance director and the HR coordinator, and they do close on the 3rd. So as per our hiring policy, we're supposed to have a committee of 3 council members to the first round interviews. So I'd like to ask the council to appoint that first committee.
I'll volunteer.
And Councilor Boxender did leave me a note that she would like to volunteer as well.
Okay,
She's HR, yeah.
we pull names out of a hat. We have 5 volunteers.
You want to?
Okay. Do you have a recommend? Okay, so who would like to volunteer? Counselor Bachschnider, Counselor Johnson,
I would.
Counselor Friedlieb, and you need 3?
3.
Okay. Is
The
there
way,
any?
the way the process goes, then the committee of 3 narrows it down, and then we bring the full council in for the second round interviews.
Okay, that being the case, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
To appoint Counselors Johnson, Friedlieb, and Beyondich to the interview committee for both the HR coordinator and the, you want both? Finance director.
Bachschnider.
Bachschnider, I'm sorry. Is that correct? Bachschnider, Friedlieb, Johnson, I said that wrong. Okay, so moved by Counselor Johnson, is there support? Support by Counselor Motley, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I think we combined them. One committee for both? What would you rather do?
I think one committee makes sense because we're looking at how the jobs fit together and how those folks might need to work together.
Okay, so I'm all in one motion. If any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Britt. Okay, with that, we stand adjourned at 12:21. Thank you.